Chapter 1148. A long time ago, in a beautiful country, there lived a king and a queen. They longed to have a child. The first act slowly began with a girl's narration. In order to let every child participate, the teacher also painstakingly wrote the script, and even let a few children, who did not dare to go on stage, wear good-looking props and take turns to read the narration. The upperclassmen's fairy tale drama was performed in Chinese, but Chi-Chi's classmates, there were more foreign children, couldn't do it. They were too young, and their Chinese wasn't good enough. They couldn't even memorize the lines. No matter how good the lines were, the most important thing was the children's performance, wasn't it? But when the king and queen came out, the parents all laughed, because the child who played the king was wearing glasses with a white beard on his small face, which was very interesting. However, maybe everyone's laughter scared the children, and they stood there at a loss, timid and pitiful. It's okay. Come on. The parents quickly made up for it and cheered them up. After all, they were the youngest children, and it was inevitable that something would happen. Their nervousness gradually disappeared under the gentle encouragement of the parents, but they looked at each other and did not say their lines. The two children forgot their lines. The adults were secretly worried for the two children. Seeing them pouting, they were so anxious that they were about to cry. At this time, the girl who played the queen looked backstage for help. From the side of the curtain, a soft voice came out, God. Although the voice was very low, everyone was quiet at this time, so it was heard clearly. Yangwu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She pulled Fong Beibei's hand and said, "That's Chi-Chi." Anyway, someone reminded the children, and they finally remembered their lines. God, we are all good kings and queens. Please give us a child. The king and queen said in a disjointed voice. It didn't matter. The flaws could not obscure the beauty. Finally, God appeared with Snow White in front of the king and queen. The plot was so good that it made the parents convulse with laughter. Kiki came out and hugged the queen. Poplar Fruit saw that the little girl's eyes were flexibly scanning the audience. She still had time to look for people in the performance. Fong Beibei was holding a DV, which Poplar Fruit bought specially for today, and was recording, so she did not realize this. Poplar Fruit felt that his daughter was looking for him, and he immediately waved his arms excitedly to greet Kiki. Kiki found her father, and her beautiful big eyes suddenly curved in a crescent. After this scene, the Kiki also returned backstage. Next, the queen passed away, and a bad new queen came on stage. It was very fun, because in addition to the main characters, there were children playing the role of a mirror. Magic mirror, magic mirror, who is the most beautiful woman in the world? The plot suddenly changed. After receiving the magic mirror's answer, the bad queen ordered 2 guards in armor to kill Snow White. Kiki was finally going to appear again. Poplar Fruit immediately perked up to enjoy his daughter's performance. When the guards drew their swords to kill the princess, they saw the princess picking flowers without any worries. Snow White was pure and kind, like an angel. This was an adjective, and it was very difficult to express it through performance or lines. However, Chi-Chi was practically acting as herself, and when she looked over with her clear and flawless big eyes, almost every audience member was reminded of these characteristics of Snow White. In the end, the guards did not make a move, and they let Snow White escape into the forest. Snow White escaped into the forest and became good friends with the 7 dwarves. Everyone had a line, and all the children acted very well. Kiki was the same. She did not learn to act, but because memorizing lines was easy for her, she spent more energy on the actions. The other children would more or less forget a few of their actions, and so would even stand still in the same spot. This was not a big deal. After all, the audience did not have high expectations for children, and watching children act was very interesting. However, because Kiki was able to complete those actions, Kiki's performance as Snow White was more vivid and cute. Poplar Fruit whispered in Fong Beibei's ear, and he was not stingy with his praise for his daughter's performance. Fong Beibei smiled and turned to Poplar Fruit and said, "Do you know that your voice has been recorded?" Poplar Fruit gave a V sign and chuckled. "Don't film me. Hurry up and film Chi-Chi. Kiki is coming up again." It turned out that the situation had suddenly changed. The bad queen, who found that Snow White was not dead, took the poisoned apple to murder Snow White, and the kind Snow White held the red apple and bit it. She really ate it. Poplar Fruit was surprised to see Kiki take a bite of the apple. The little girl foolishly and happily said to the bad queen, "It's delicious." This line was designed by the teacher, but it was indeed a good joke. The parents in the audience were amused. The plot continued, but Snow White, who was killed by the poisoned apple, was lying on a stage surrounded by flowers. Kiki's part was temporarily absent. Poplar Fruit watched the black child play the prince. He curled his lips and muttered in his heart, "This is the part I'm the most unhappy about." He did not say it here, worried that others would think he was racist because there were many foreign parents around. However, Poplar Fruit was not racist. He was just jealous when he saw a child kiss his daughter. He did not care if the other party was a child or an adult, black or white or Chinese. Yangwu didn't really care what the plot was or what the lines were. His eyes were fixed on the black kid as he walked step by step towards Chi-Chi, who was lying among the flowers. Hey, he didn't kiss her. He just touched her hair, and he even touched the crown. Poplar Fruit's wide eyes suddenly became radiant. His mood suddenly became as bright as the blue sky above Baiyun Mountain in April. Fong Beibei snickered. She had just been held by Poplar Fruit, so she could clearly feel the inner struggle in Poplar Fruit's heart. Poplar Fruit finally made it to the end of Kiki's fairy tale performance. He could not wait to stand up and applaud Kiki. Although all the parents were applauding, Chi-Chi's smile was like a crescent moon, and her beautiful eyes were only filled with her father's exaggerated thumbs up. After the performance, Kiki did not need to remove the props like the other children. She was directly carried back to the seat by her father with her fluffy dress. Kiki's performance was great. Poplar Fruit's face was full of smiles. He was reluctant to let go of Kiki. Papa, the drama is so fun. Kiki is so happy." In her father's arms, Kiki was still wearing the crown. She raised her head and laughed softly. "Is Snow White your daughter? What a great performance." There were parents in front and behind them who turned around to look at the warm appearance of the father and daughter. In particular, a white elder sister even gave a thumbs up and praised them. Of course, she spoke in English. "Thank you. She is too shy." Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed to Kiki, who was hiding her face in his arms. Chapter 1149. April passed at a moderate pace, but ever since Poplar Fruit received a piece of news from Teacher He, who had just finished filming the movie and was still staying in Yangqing City, he couldn't wait to make time pass faster. Only Poplar Fruit knew how difficult it was to keep a secret. He even held it in for a week before telling Fong Beibei, and then pulled Fong Beibei together to keep the secret. Finally, they waited for Kiki's birthday. This year, some of Kiki's kindergarten friends who had a good relationship with Kiki were invited to celebrate Kiki's 4th birthday. After the birthday began, the beautifully dressed Kiki was led downstairs by Fong Beibei. She happily greeted and hugged each of her friends and jumped up and down. But the little fellow soon found that there was a person in the room that she didn't know who was carrying a big camera. She pulled Poplar Fruit's hand in confusion and asked, "Papa, Papa, who is this uncle?" "Oh, this uncle." This uncle was invited by Papa to take a birthday video for Kiki. It could be a souvenir in the future. Poplar Fruit secretly wiped his cold sweat and lied without leaving a trace. Kiki completely believed her father's explanation. She turned her head and played with her friends again. After a while, when Kiki was dividing the cake, she carefully held a plate and walked to the cameraman uncle. She raised her head and said in a clear voice, "Uncle, you also eat the cake." Poplar Fruit and the cameraman were stunned for a moment. The cameraman smiled and said, "Kiki, thank you, but I still have to work." "It's okay." Kiki smiled brightly and said, "My papa can help you with the camera. Papa is very strong." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only stand up and pay for his daughter. He took the camera from the cameraman's hand and smiled. "It's fine, you can try it first. This little fellow hasn't even given me a piece yet." Yangwa's words sounded a little jealous. Kiki giggled and handed the cake to the photographer. She swung her ponytail and ran back to the children. Her behavior was also seen by the other children. They shouted loudly, "Kiki, I'll give you mine too." At 8 o'clock, the noisy birthday party finally ended. Kiki sent off her friends who needed to go home early one by one. However, Kiki was not sad. Although she had opened many gifts from her friends, the biggest gift from her father and mother had not been opened yet. Poplar Fruit told Kiki that this was the surprise for the last, the biggest surprise. As for what the birthday gift was, Poplar Fruit did not reveal anything to Kiki before. Even Kiki secretly paid attention to her father and asked Gold to help search the whole house, but she did not find any clues. So Kiki could only wait for this to be the last. It was also because she was looking forward to it too much. After Kiki sent her friends away, she pestered her father for a gift. She did not notice that the cameraman who had been recording just now had not left. The gift will be taken out soon, but Kiki has to count to 100 in her mother's arms. Poplar Fruit said to Kiki with a smile. At the same time, he secretly gestured to the cameraman to make a phone call. "You want me to count to 100? Chi-Chi's mouth slightly pouted. 100? Yes, count to 100. You have to count to 100. Otherwise, the gift will fly away. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Papa, you are fooling me. Kiki was not that stupid. I'm not fooling you. It's true. You have to count to 100, and you can't peek at it. Only then will the gift appear. Poplar Fruit said. Okay. In the end, the gift was more tempting. Kiki got into Fong Bebe's arms and began to count. 1, 2, 3. It was finally going to start. The other party had been preparing for a long time. Poplar Fruit had been waiting for 11 days. Finally, he was going to present this birthday surprise to Kiki. After waiting for a while, the cameraman's phone vibrated. Poplar Fruit opened the door and welcomed a person who had been waiting downstairs for several hours. However, at this time, they did not make any noise. They just held back their laughter and gestured to each other. Kiki was still counting. She had already counted to more than 50. It was rare for her to be so patient. Of course, Poplar Fruit would not let Kiki continue to count, because the purpose of counting had been achieved. Kiki, you don't have to count. Why don't you look at your gift? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Really? Chi-Chi was overjoyed as she turned her head around. Her big eyes first searched for her father's voice, and then she was attracted by the corner of her eyes because there was a big card placed in front of her. Kiki leaned in Fong Bebe's arms, looking at the card and the square-faced man behind it in a daze. She was so silly that she did not know what to say. The cameraman next to them professionally aimed the camera at their faces. Kiki, happy birthday. Do you still remember me? The square-faced man said with a smile. The lights in the room were very bright, and when his voice came out, Kiki immediately reacted. She covered her little mouth, looked at the man with a surprised expression, and then shouted in an unbelievable voice. You are the village chief. You are really the village chief? Yes, I am the village chief. Li Rue looked at Chi-Chi with a smile. Chi-Chi's cuteness was through the roof at this moment, and this was all natural and unadorned. It's really the village chief. Papa, the village chief is here. Kiki jumped on the ground and called Poplar Fruit to let him see. Poplar Fruit stood there with a smile. Of course he knew. Kiki, today the village chief was asked by your father to give you a gift. Don't you want to see it? The village chief Li Rue reminded with a smile. A gift for me? Kiki finally came back to her senses. After she recovered her original reason, she became a little shy again. After all, it was the first time she saw the village chief in real life. She shrank in Fong Bebe's arms and wanted to confirm it again. Yes, the village chief Li Rue nodded and stretched out the card that was as big as a courier. Kiki, who had watched the first 2 seasons of Where Are We Going, Daddy, recognized the card. After looking carefully, she immediately shouted, A mission card. Yes, this is a mission card for Kiki. The village chief Li Rue said with a smile. Kiki, read it. Poplar Fruit had told him before that Kiki could read. Kiki looked forward to it. She took the mission card, opened it, and read. Dear Kiki, We invite you and your Papa Poplar Fruit to participate in the third season of Where Are We Going, Daddy? As guests. Central, Kiki didn't recognize all the characters. Hopes to see you join us. Where are we going, Daddy? Do you like it? Kiki, this is the birthday gift that I and the crew of Where Are We Going, Daddy? Poplar Fruit walked over with a smile and picked her up. After reading it, Kiki still couldn't believe it. But looking at her father's serious face and the village chief Li Rue, who suddenly appeared in their house, Kiki already understood that everything was real. The wish that she took off last year's birthday actually came true. Kiki was suddenly moved by her father and everything in front of her eyes. Yes, Kiki likes it. Kiki's big eyes were rolling with gold beans. She nodded vigorously. She suddenly hugged her father's neck and laughed through her tears. She cheered loudly. Kiki wants to go with Papa? Where are we going, Daddy? Chapter 1150. The video recorded on Kiki's birthday was very eye-catching. After all, Kiki had made such a wish last year. After a year, her dream had finally come true. It would definitely win people's attention and praise. Mango TV and Poplar Fruit kept it a secret. Therefore, in the past few days of Kiki's birthday, fans have been bringing up the incident from half a year ago. Then hundreds of thousands of people gathered on Mango TV and Poplar Fruit's official Weibo to make an appeal. It was as if tens of thousands of people were willing. However, Mango TV didn't say anything. They also kept the video and prepared to make it into a trailer for publicity in June. Poplar Fruit couldn't say anything. He just made an ambiguous spoiler on his Weibo. This year, Kiki's birthday, Daddy gave her a super awesome present. Look, the little guy is smiling from ear to ear. Now, you won't have any regrets, right? There was also a photo of Kiki smiling happily below, but Poplar Fruit didn't tell people what the present was. Moreover, from the analysis of Poplar Fruit's Weibo, it was more likely that he had given a present that Kiki liked very much. This way, Kiki would forget the regret of not fulfilling her wish last year. Of course, there were some smart netizens who deciphered the truth from Poplar Fruit's Weibo. Could it be that Poplar Fruit had fulfilled Kiki's wish? However, their views weren't accepted by the public. Indeed, it wasn't easy for a non-celebrity to participate in Where Are We Going, Dad? Although fans had been petitioning for Poplar Fruit to be a model like Zhang Liang, they weren't sure. Poplar Fruit himself had said that he had recorded Where Are We Going, Dad? For fun. Moreover, the commotion this time was only caused by Poplar Fruit's own fans. It wasn't like last year when it almost escalated to a national scale. However, with the passage of time, the guest list was gradually revealed. First, it was Liu Yi who was confirmed. Then, the Olympic champion and professional boxing champion Zhou Shimin was also confirmed to be participating in Where Are We Going, Dad? Then, it was revealed that Zhang Jin, Chen Jianbin, and other celebrities would be participating. The truth and falsehood in these revelations were hard to distinguish. It was impossible to say that Mango TV or a management company wasn't behind this. But to a certain extent, these revelations also satisfied the fans of the show who had been longing for their father for the third season. If it weren't for these revelations that continued to attract the audience's attention, the audience might have gradually forgotten about the show due to the decline in attention. Even if the show managed to regain some of the audience's popularity by relying on the excitement of the show, the premiere or the first few episodes of the show would definitely be greatly affected. This was an unacceptable failure for both the advertisers and Mango TV. There would be promotions, but before the official promotions, it wasn't a bad choice to rely on these rumors to gain popularity. No matter what, the audience and media had predicted a few real guests, but no one predicted the existence of Poplar Fruit and Kiki. Only Yang was fans weekly protested with a few grievances. What was Poplar Fruit doing in May? In the beginning of May, Poplar Fruit was sorting out the photos and videos of himself and Kiki from the past few years and sending them to the program staff. Poplar Fruit did very well in this aspect. In terms of promotions, he only made the final judgment whether it was okay or not. As for the specifics of how to promote and how to operate, it all depended on the opinions of the professionals. Of course, he still had his own academic and school tasks to attend to. Recently, Poplar Fruit had become restless again. Currently, the theory of word disassembly and translation was nearing perfection. All that needed to be done was to promote it. This was not something that Poplar Fruit needed to worry about. Therefore, Poplar Fruit began upon a new research. Since the disassembling method could make it easier for foreigners whose mother tongue was not hieroglyphics to learn Chinese with hieroglyphics, was there a similar or opposite theory to the disassembling method that could make it easier for Chinese whose mother tongue was hieroglyphics to learn Western languages with letters as morphemes? The above was more complicated, but simply put, Poplar Fruit wanted to research a way to make it easier for Chinese people to learn foreign languages. Poplar Fruit believed that there was such a thing, and the key to this research was likely to be hidden in his word disassembly. No matter what, this was another difficult research project. Chen Zhongdai felt that it was a little unbelievable after hearing Poplar Fruit's idea. However, Chen Zhongdai would encourage Poplar Fruit to research it. After all, this kid often created miracles that no one could imagine. The only thing that made Chen Zhongdai unhappy was that after Poplar Fruit proposed his idea, he took advantage of the old man's happiness to mention his participation in the show's recording schedule. Chen Zhongdai could not do anything about Poplar Fruit. He knew that participating in the show was not Poplar Fruit's own wish. Poplar Fruit was only sacrificing himself for his daughter. However, this guy was too despicable. Every time he wanted to do some research, he would go and stir up some news. If he participated in, "Where are we going, Dad?" Poplar Fruit would definitely become the subject of the media's coverage. Would it kill you to just focus on your studies and not be half-hearted? Even if Poplar Fruit could multitask, it would not be enough. Regardless, the old man still dispiritedly approved Poplar Fruit's schedule. On May 10th, Poplar Fruit also flew to Beijing to participate in the translation industry's academic conference. At the same time, he was listed as an assistant director of the China Translation Association. He also received a translation contribution award that no one had heard of before. On the 12th, Poplar Fruit was still in Beijing. He did not return to Guangzhou. The United Nations and China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs called Poplar Fruit for a meeting. Poplar Fruit also attended the meeting as a consultant. The topic of discussion was, of course, the recently popular long-distance education. After a few major member states of the United Nations and a few lower member states discussed together, they decided to work together as an official to promote this long-distance education assistance. Of course, everything was still in the budding stage. Poplar Fruit did not need to do anything. The negotiations between the major countries, capital allocation, profit sharing, would probably take a few more months. Then why did Poplar Fruit attend? Because Poplar Fruit was the founder of this education model. The father of XXX education, this title was not for nothing. Even if they treated Poplar Fruit as a mascot, it would be worth it. At the national level, Poplar Fruit did not have much choice. Let's not talk about these matters for the time being. It was already the middle of May. Finally, the guest list could no longer be concealed. The complete guest list was exposed under the intentional or unintentional leak of the Mango Station. Poplar Fruit and his daughter, Yang Luoqi, were on the list. Chapter 1151. The names look a little strange. It's mainly to avoid arousing suspicion. Everyone, please bear with it for a while. According to Mango Entertainment's Weibo, the list of Where's Daddy Go was finally confirmed to be Lu Yi and Lu Nuyi, Hu Jun and Hu Haokong, Lin Yongjian and Lin Dajuan, Zhou Shiming and Zhou Mingxian, and finally, Poplar Fruit and Yang Luoqi. It was already clear who was behind Mango Entertainment. Just by looking at the name, it was obvious. Therefore, the list of names that it revealed was most likely true. However, this list was too interesting. Other things aside, Lu Yi and Hu Jun, this pair of celebrities, were amazing. Although Blue Universe, a same-sex themed movie, which they starred in, was banned in the country and remained silent until now, it was still a blockbuster that won the Golden Horse Best Actor award after all. Moreover, their acting in it was still a hot topic for many people. No matter what, they were once a couple on the silver screen. This time, They were acting in a reality TV show together. No matter how you looked at it, there was some blue charm. Hee hee. There was also the poplar fruit father and daughter. As long as the media people in the country were not greenhorns, they would definitely not be unfamiliar with poplar fruit's name. Just like how teacher Janie Don introduced poplar fruit in Touch China, it was very difficult to define poplar fruit's position. This was because when you thought that he was a leading figure in a certain industry, poplar fruit would immediately make jaw-dropping achievements in another industry. The domestic media had a lot of reports on poplar fruit, not to mention the series of domestic and international combo punches in February and March. Poplar fruit had become a double superstar in the country and internationally. As long as it was news about poplar fruit, it would definitely attract a lot of media people. However, to the entertainment media, they hated poplar fruit's performance to the core. Of course, this kind of hatred came from the fact that he didn't fight for it. Everyone thought that poplar fruit had the looks, the figure, the fame, and even the opportunity. There were always people waving money to invite poplar fruit to appear on shows or act in movies or dramas. Later on, they found out that he was also skilled in martial arts. So no matter what, he would definitely become a big hit if he came to the entertainment industry. Others couldn't even become popular if they wanted to, but poplar fruit couldn't avoid it at all costs. How could such a waste of talent not make the entertainment reporters beat their chests and stamp their feet? Well, in fact, it was just their imagination. However, poplar fruit suddenly appeared on the guest list of the reality television show. This made them excited. Fuck. Poplar fruit, such a fake saint, had finally gone to the sea for money? There was a reason for them to think so. After all, reality television shows had become more and more popular in recent years, and the appearance fees for the guests were also increasing. For example, some of the older generation celebrities who had retreated from the entertainment industry had been scouted. Even a superstar like Zhou Gongju had agreed to appear on China's Top Voice at a sky-high price. As long as the audience wanted to see it, who would be able to hold their ground? Mango TV must have spent a lot of money to invite poplar fruit. The media said confidently. Quite a number of people believed it, but more people, led by poplar fruit's fans, sneered. Bullshit. Does our poplar fruit oppa lack money? He donated more than $200 million in the past 2 to 3 years. And Mango TV spent more than $200 million? Even inviting Beckham doesn't need to spend so much money, right? Half a year had passed, and many media reporters had gradually forgotten about the petition that poplar fruit fans had made for poplar fruit at the end of last year. However, this was no longer a secret, and it was quickly turned over. Only then did the reporters change their tone. It was changed to the statement that poplar fruit had gone to the sea for his daughter. With the reporters' brilliant writing, this simple story was exaggerated to the point that it was almost written as a touching story of poplar fruit selling his body just to make his daughter smile. None of them had lost their moral integrity. Regardless, once the name list was released, the clamoring media got excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They spread out and rushed to different parts of the country to interview these new celebrities. Many reporters came to Guangzhou, but they could not enter poplar fruit's neighborhood, so they went to Higashiyama University to look for him. Poplar fruit could not be found, and Chun Zongdai was stuck in front of the school building with a sullen expression. The reporters recognized him. He was the dean of the School of Foreign Languages and poplar fruit's mentor. Yes, he's going to participate in a TV show. We will support the students to have a rich and colorful life after school as long as it doesn't affect their studies. Chun Zongdai also knew how to lie in a dignified manner. The show is only for a few days at a time. It won't affect his studies and work at school. Okay, I have to go to class. If you have any questions, you can ask poplar fruit directly. Wait for him to come back. Chun Zongdai was finally able to escape when the school's security arrived. After escaping back to his office, Chun Zongdai helplessly cursed, "That little bastard." Poplar fruit was indeed not at school. Fong Bei was also used to this and nimbly avoided the reporter's search. So the reporters who came up empty-handed began to feel depressed. Why couldn't they find him? In fact, after the list was declared to the customs, many reporters who went to interview the celebrities were left empty-handed. Fortunately, after all, the other guests had management companies. Even if they couldn't find the main characters, they could still get some news from their managers. Poplar Fruit was alone. He didn't have any manager or assistant. This was understandable, but the reporters expressed that they couldn't accept it. These questions were raised by the reporters, and then some fans ran to Poplar Fruit's Weibo to recommend themselves, saying that they were willing to be Poplar Fruit's manager and makeup artist for free. Originally, no one expected Poplar Fruit to reply, but the next day, Poplar Fruit actually sent a Weibo reply to these cute fans. Haha, thank you everyone, but there's really no need. I'm just taking my daughter out for a trip. There's no need to make such a big fuss. Also, don't you want to see us on camera without makeup? Poplar Fruit also posted a photo of the father and daughter waiting at the airport to satisfy the fans' and reporters' desire. The fans liked it and said proudly, "There's no need for makeup. Our Appa is as handsome and beautiful as Princess Kiki." This was true. One had to know that except for the Bali Fashion Week show and participating in the Express book, Poplar Fruit had never put on makeup again. Kiki was even more so. Poplar Fruit couldn't accept those cosmetics, hurting his daughter's delicate skin. Poplar Fruit's Weibo was posted by himself, but the photo was arranged by the program team. Poplar Fruit didn't have the brain for publicity. It was also because of this photo that the eyes of the media lit up. They wondered in their hearts, has the recording started? So, a lot of press releases were released, and even some confusing titles were hung on the homepage of the website. Dad, the third season has started recording. Insiders say that the premiere may be in July. Is this true? Chapter 1152. After changing Kiki into a beige dress, Poplar Fruit helped Kiki apply toothpaste and let her brush her teeth. Poplar Fruit made way for the cameraman to film Kiki. Then he explained to his assistant casually, "Previously, there was a drama party in the kindergarten, and she played Snow White in the class program." "Wait a minute." The assistant interrupted Poplar Fruit with an apologetic look and called the cameraman over to face Poplar Fruit. "Teacher Young, look at the camera and say it again." Well, Poplar Fruit, a newcomer to variety shows, still didn't understand these details. But it didn't matter. Poplar Fruit began again, and this time it was more concise. After all, his IQ wasn't low, and he had watched a lot of variety shows, so he knew that he couldn't be long-winded. What he wanted to say was why Kiki wanted her father to kiss her before she was willing to get up. It was mainly because of the after-effects of playing Snow White. Kiki liked some of the scenes in the show, such as the prince waking the princess up with a kiss. So, the little girl couldn't be stopped. If her father didn't kiss her, the little girl would stay in bed and refuse to get up. Even if Fong Beibei kissed her, she couldn't do it. It had to be her most dependent father. The material of this paragraph wasn't broadcasted, but it will be made into subtitles to help people understand. It would be broadcasted together with a clip of Poplar Fruit waking Kiki up. Most of the audience still didn't understand this joke. Only the many fans under Poplar Fruit's Weibo knew about Kiki's previous performance. Of course, the show would also use this gimmick for publicity. They just slightly edited the video provided by Poplar Fruit that night and uploaded it to Weibo. Suddenly, Kiki's popularity rose a lot. Don't say it. Kiki finished brushing her teeth and didn't wipe her mouth clean. She shyly ran over to cover her father's mouth and secretly glanced at the camera. "You still need to wash your face. Go quickly." Poplar Fruit took Kiki's towel from his shoulder and sent Kiki to the bathroom. "Let me show you something good." Poplar Fruit smiled mysteriously. Today, he was also acting like a child. He winked at the camera, then went to the bedside table and picked up a beautiful bell. "What is this?" the assistant asked curiously. "Take a picture of her later." Poplar Fruit pointed at Kiki, who was standing on a small stool in the bathroom and struggling to wipe her face with a towel. He didn't answer directly. Poplar Fruit smiled brightly. He shook the bell in his hand, and a clear sound came out. The cameraman quickly turned around and faced Kiki in the bathroom. The little girl put down the towel, jumped down from the small stool, and ran to her father with a happy smile. Poplar Fruit had already bent down and leaned over. Kiki kissed her father's face, then shyly ran away with her beautiful, wet, curly hair. It turned out that this was Poplar Fruit's precious bell. They had all agreed that as long as the bell rang, it meant, "Please come and kiss me." Then, whether it was Poplar Fruit, Kiki, or Fong Bei Bei, they would all have to put down what they were doing and kiss the person who held the bell. Of course, Kiki liked to play with it the most. During breakfast, Poplar Fruit's voracious appetite amazed the assistant and cameraman. But unfortunately, this scene would not be seen by the audience. In fact, the luggage had already been packed. Because the production crew was responsible for the food and accommodation, the 2 or 3 large suitcases were compressed into 1.5 by Poplar Fruit. The other half was a small suitcase stacked on top of the large suitcase, and the main suitcase was Kiki's clothes. They could leave after 8 o'clock, but the plane was at 11 o'clock, so they delayed a little. The production crew didn't expect Poplar Fruit to move so quickly. "Mommy won't go. Kiki, say goodbye to Mommy." Poplar Fruit patted Kiki's little butt and stood up with a smile. It was time to leave. The assistant and cameraman had already packed their props and luggage. "Goodbye, Mommy." Kiki obediently kissed Fong Bei Bei. "Goodbye, Kiki. Have fun with Daddy." Fong Bei Bei laughed. While Kiki was saying goodbye to Goldie, Poplar Fruit walked up, took Fong Bei Bei's hand, and kissed it. Compared to other fathers, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei Bei were more conservative. They were too embarrassed to be too intimate in front of outsiders. However, the gentleness in Poplar Fruit's voice could still be heard. He said, "Baby, I'm leaving. Next time, I'll bring you on a trip. Be careful." Fong Bei Bei reluctantly hugged Poplar Fruit before letting go. After saying goodbye to Fong Bei Bei, Poplar Fruit and Kiki flew to Nanhu Province with the production crew. The same story also happened in Beijing and Guishan. The audience followed the production crew's camera and went deeper into the family lives of these big stars. This opportunity was rare, because the biggest difference between the 3rd season and the first 2 seasons was that the production schedule was much tighter. In the past, every episode would have a scene of the children setting off. In the 3rd season, only the first episode was left. Of course, from this episode, the audience could also understand what kind of children the guests of this season were. It had to be said that this time, the production crew really put in a lot of effort to figure out the candidates for the guests. Not to mention the adults, the 5 little protagonists each had a distinct personality. Nuo Yi was sensible and down-to-earth. Lin Dajuan was kind and stubborn. Kong Kong was cold and heartwarming. Xian Xian was honest and persistent, and Kiki had the appearance of a princess and the heart of an angel. Finally, no one would have expected her to be a mischievous fairy. Every child had captured the hearts of the audience from the beginning. As the show progressed, they were deeply loved by the audience of all ages and firmly held onto the show's ratings. When the first episode was broadcast, the show's ratings had already reached 28%, although it could not compare to the ratings of the first episode of the 2nd season. As long as it did not start high and end low like the 2nd season, it was undoubtedly a success for the show. Don't think that too. 28% was a small number. One had to know that when the 3rd season was broadcast, it was facing the end of the 2nd season of The Running Man, and the even more popular 4th season of China's Top Voice was about to be broadcast. In terms of attention, it was far inferior to the 2nd season of Where Are We Going, Dad? Moreover, in recent years, the development of online videos had faintly surpassed that of television. We can't ignore the impact of online videos that were only a few hours later than the television premiere on television. 28% was a good start, and it made us believe that the future would be better. However, it didn't. The ratings of the 3rd season actually started high and ended low. The impact of China's Top Voice was too severe. However, it could be seen that the ratings had indeed stabilized later on. In the novel, the addition of Kiki would not have much impact on the ratings. Perhaps it would only increase by a few tenths of %, but so what? The audience that we like will continue to like it, right? Chapter 11:53. Due to the short distance and early arrival, Poplar Fruit was able to let Kiki take a nap at the hotel arranged by Mango Station. When they rushed to Mango Station to meet with the other parents, it was already past 2 in the afternoon. Among the 5 parents, 3 of the actor fathers were more familiar with each other. Liu Yi and Hu Jun aside, even if Lin Yongjin was not familiar with them, he still knew them. After all, they were all in the mainland Chinese actor circle and lived in Beijing. However, this did not mean that they would reject Poplar Fruit and Zhou Shimin. Under the enthusiasm, everyone chatted and became familiar with each other. Especially the president of Hua Society, Liu Yi. He was particularly lively as he asked who was better between Poplar Fruit and Zhou Shimin. Liu Yi had done his homework, and the question he asked was indeed interesting. After all, Poplar Fruit had single-handedly fought 8 armed thugs in the video and killed them. Zhou Shimin was an Olympic champion and a professional boxing champion. Although he was much shorter than Poplar Fruit, his skills were not to be underestimated. Brother Zhou is better. Of course, Poplar Fruit is better. As expected, the two fathers chose to be humble. They looked at each other and laughed. In fact, in terms of boxing skills, Poplar Fruit was not as good as Zhou Shimin. However, in terms of skills, Poplar Fruit was definitely better or much better. After all, even professional boxing, not to mention the black market boxing, was based on the rules and would not put one's life on the line. Zhou Shimin had learned martial arts before, but that was only the tip of the iceberg. He had not seen real internal martial arts. Even if Meng Sanhua came to fight him, Meng Sanhua could easily defeat him at the cost of minor injuries, let alone Poplar Fruit, who was far inferior to Meng Sanhua. Of course, in Zhou Shimin's heart, he was still better than Poplar Fruit. After all, he was also a 3-time Olympic champion and was now a professional boxing champion. He deserved such pride in his heart. However, what was the point of fighting over this? He and Poplar Fruit were participating in a parent-child program, not a boxing championship. The children also had their first interaction under the guidance of the adults. Children's friendships sprouted more easily than adults. While Poplar Fruit and the others were still chatting, the children had already started chatting. Let me tell you the story of Sun Wukong. He was a little tongue-tied, but his father's northeastern accent was very pleasant to the ears. Good. Kiki clapped her hands, beaming with joy. Of course, our cold and domineering CEO Kong Kong was watching from the side. He was older than all 4 of his friends. He was introverted and a little shy, so he couldn't speak freely with his younger siblings. If he wanted to blend in, he would have to rely on his own initiative. It was already late today, and it was not yet time to officially start the 3 days and 2 nights journey. As they gathered at the station, the program team not only allowed them to get to know each other, but there was also a small but meticulously designed program waiting for them. Before that, each father went to a small stage in the building to do a simple interview. There was only one question. Do you have any experience in bringing your child out for a trip? Hu Jun's expression was always the same, cool. But when faced with this question, he even looked a little worried. I've never taken him out alone. Without his mother by my side, I think I'll go crazy easily. I'll be in a mess. His hands were already going crazy as he continued. I feel a little anxious. Sometimes, before I can even annoy him, he will annoy me first. He will leave first. It seemed like there were many problems between father and son. Liu Yu was interesting. Even if the president of Hua Society answered the question seriously, it would give people a feeling that he was not serious. He trembled a little, as if he was really worried. No, this is the first time. This is the first time this big girl has been on a sedan chair. There wasn't much time for this, nor was there much real interaction. This point was reflected in the later segment. Lin Yongjin's answer was very serious. It could be seen that Teacher Lin was really putting an effort to think about the problem of getting along with his son. He said in a low voice, "There really wasn't. Out of the 365 days in a year, I was at the filming location for 350 days. Similarly, there was nothing." Zhou Shimin's answer was very emotional. When Xian still has a younger brother. First call for their father, the first time they raised their heads, the first time they crawled, and the first time they walked, I was basically not by their side. Most of the dad's answers were no. Even if it was no at all, that was not necessarily the case. However, it could be confirmed that these celebrities were busy people. They did not have much time to spend with their children. According to the program's needs, it was not hard to say that they did not have much time. However, Poplar Fruit's answer was different. He did not want to lie, nor did he lie. His fans knew it very well. In the past year, after Kiki went to kindergarten, we did not go out together much. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, but in the first 3 years, to be honest, we were really inseparable. Especially before she was 2 years old. She was so clingy. Don't mention it. Poplar Fruit did not say that at the most serious time, when Kiki was just born, she could not leave her father's side. Poplar Fruit even quit his promising job because of this. However, Poplar Fruit had now gently let go of that difficult past. All he saw was the happy life now. I brought her with me when I came to Beijing for press conferences, when I went traveling, when I attended academic conferences, and even when I went to Bali. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. I was her support, and she was my happy fruit, the source of my energy. Whenever I was tired from work, all my worries and tiredness would be swept away when I saw her. Well, I still spend a lot of time with her now, because I think that our family is more important than anything else. From this answer, it could be seen that Poplar Fruit was the most special of the 5 fathers. But thinking about it, Poplar Fruit was the youngest. Even Zhou Shimin was 7 years older than Poplar Fruit. Needless to say, Hu Jun was a generation older than Poplar Fruit, a full 20 years. Poplar Fruit was the only single father. When Kiki was born, she was raised by Poplar Fruit alone. The love that Poplar Fruit poured into Kiki was not only double, but also beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Watching Poplar Fruit say such a sentence, the program actually played it in its entirety, accompanied by some sensational photos, the ones of Kiki's childhood. The audience felt as if they had experienced it themselves at that moment. Although Poplar Fruit said it with a smile and ease, the audience could understand that it was not easy. The audience's curiosity was completely aroused by the program. They could not wait to know how our lovely Kiki would behave under the care of such a warm father. Chapter 11:54. Before the start of the first trip, the fathers and the children had to go through a special test. Before Poplar Fruit and the others arrived, Mango TV had already built 5 rooms in the studio. They were of different styles, but they all had one thing in common. There were many paintings hanging on the walls. In fact, the paintings were all a cover because there were many hidden cameras behind them. Poplar Fruit held Kiki's hand and came to this floor with the other fathers and children. Later, the fathers and children will be interviewed separately, the assistant director said. But before the interview, you have to wait in your own rooms. We will come back and inform you to be interviewed. The interview was fake, but the waiting was real. The production team had designed such a secret room, where only the fathers and children could be alone. They had to stay in there for a boring hour. During this hour, they had no choice but to wait, because the production team locked the door as soon as they walked in. Poplar Fruit and Kiki went in. Just as they sat down, they heard the door lock click. His ears were still quite sensitive. He didn't need to go to confirm what had happened outside. Poplar Fruit's lips curled up slightly. He remembered that the production team had asked them to go to the bathroom. No wonder the requirements were so strange. It seemed that they were going to lock him and Kiki up for a while. She vaguely understood the program team's thoughts for this segment. It was already so obvious, so Yongwa felt more at ease. Come, sit with Dad for a while. Poplar Fruit smiled and waved to Kiki. He said, this chair is quite comfortable. After the little girl got up in the afternoon, she changed it to a long dress made of more comfortable material. It was warm pink, which made her skin look particularly white. There was a Hello Kitty print on the front, which made her look playful and cute. Not only that, she also wore a princess crown. Of course, it was not an expensive crystal crown, but a very cheap plastic product. It looked better with gold foil. As long as she was as beautiful as a little princess, there was no need to be as luxurious as a real princess. Poplar Fruit did not want his daughter to be infected with princess syndrome. Papa, this room looks like our home, Kiki said to Poplar Fruit as she sat down beside her father. Well, it's very foreign, isn't it? Poplar Fruit patted the chair and said with a smile, this chair is very similar to the one we saw in Sister Luo Danny's house when we went to Bali. I remember I remember. This is also a princess's chair. Kiki giggled as she pulled her father's hand. There was a joke here that the audience might not know. Kiki and Luo Danny watched Frozen together 2 years ago. In the end, one claimed to be Princess Elsa, while the other claimed to be Princess Anna. Of course, Kiki preferred Princess Elsa, who knew magic, although Luo Danny was much older than her. Originally, Kiki was still a little restrained when she first came in, but as time passed, Kiki completely relaxed. After all, there were no strangers in this room. So what if it was a secret room? In Kiki's mind, as long as her father was there, she had the whole world. Papa, I want to listen to a story. Kiki leaned on her father's arm and moved her slender legs like a swing. Storytelling was Poplar Fruit's old profession. Every day, when Kiki slept, she would listen to Poplar Fruit telling stories. Only when Poplar Fruit was not at home, Fong Bei would read to her. Although there was no drawing book in hand, with the stock of fairy tales in Poplar Fruit's mind, he would not run out of fairy tales even if he told them for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, Papa will tell you the story of 3 little elephants. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. No, I want to listen to Princess Elsa's story today. Kiki shook her hand. The memory just now made Kiki begin to miss the kind and magical Princess Elsa. Well, then let's tell the story of Princess Elsa and Snowbow's adventure in the forest. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. This was a story he made up on the spot. Although it was made up on the spot, Poplar Fruit's memory was too large. He could make up a story on the spot, and the plot was attractive. Unconsciously, the little fellow was enraptured by the story. After the story ended, she couldn't resist the urge to perform in her heart and jumped down from the chair. Papa, you're the Bigfoot monster. I am Princess Elsa. Kiki pulled Poplar Fruit's hand and waved it. The Bigfoot monster is very bad. It took Snowbow away. Yes. Then, Princess Elsa, are you here to defeat me and save Snowbow? Poplar Fruit held back his laughter and asked while gesturing with his hands. Kiki, who was smiling as beautifully as a flower, nodded her head. Just like Princess Elsa in the movie, she swayed her skirt. Then, her hand seemed to gather magical elements in the air and waved it out. What is this? It's so powerful. Poplar Fruit made an appearance of resisting with all his might. Kiki, this is Ice Snow Arrow. I can shoot out a lot of them at once. Kiki's little hands intertwined as she explained with a smile. She had a lot of fun playing with her father. Let me out. Suddenly, a roar came from outside the room. Word by word, it vented the annoyance in the owner's heart. Poplar Fruit could tell that it was Hu Jun's son, Kong Kong. He didn't expect that Kong Kong, who was the oldest, would be the first to become impatient. But thinking about it, Brother Hu Jun was such a quiet person, and Kong Kong already had his own consciousness. It would be strange if he could stay in the same room with his father peacefully. However, Kong Kong's cry scared Kiki, who was immersed in the world of magical princesses. The little girl was stunned at first, and subconsciously turned her head to look for the source of the sound. Then, Kong Kong's cry became louder and louder, and she ran to her father's side in fear. Only when she grabbed her father's hand and felt her father's warmth did Kiki feel a little relieved. It's okay. That's your brother Kong Kong. Poplar Fruit comforted her with a smile. Why is Brother Kong Kong shouting? Kiki asked in confusion. Because Brother Kong Kong doesn't like to be locked up. Poplar Fruit said. Why don't I like it? Kiki thinks it's very fun. Kiki giggled as she looked up at her father. You think it's very fun? Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Really? It's true. I'm very happy to play with Dad. Kiki nodded her little head, smiled sweetly, and said, just like when I was young. Poplar Fruit suddenly remembered that he hadn't been doing well recently. It wasn't that he didn't spend time with Kiki, but it was very rare for him to sit alone and chat with Kiki like this. After all, now that Kiki had to go to kindergarten during the day, and, at night, there was the disturbance of gold and other toys at home, it was very rare for Kiki to talk so happily with Poplar Fruit like this. Poplar Fruit actually began to enjoy the quiet and undisturbed environment that the program group created for them. Chapter 1155. In a secret room, every father behaved differently. Only a few dads treated their children as warmly as poplar fruit. Zhou Shimin was in a better situation. He didn't have the tenderness of an Iron Man, but he got along well with his son. They were like good brothers. Lin Yongjian was a very introspective person, but he had a son at an old age. The age gap between him and his son was too big. Not to mention the generation gap. His traditional child-rearing thinking made Dejun somewhat resistant. Although things were peaceful for a while, Dejun woke up too early in the morning. He was so excited that he didn't rest at noon, so he chatted in the room for half an hour and wanted to sleep. Lin Yongjian felt sorry for his son and said, "Then you sleep first. Is it too bright, this place?" Lin Yongjian asked. "Yes, it's too bright for my eyes." Dejun turned over. Lin Yongjian found a black cloth and made a blindfold for Dejun. Then he sat beside him and watched him fall asleep. Although teacher Lin's way of treating children was very traditional and was even questioned by many netizens, it was undeniable that he was also a father who loved his son. Perhaps he didn't know how to express his love, but seeing him sitting silently beside his son, he wanted to communicate with his son, but he still let him rest for a while. Even after the door was opened, he still felt a little sad. This scene made many fathers who could empathize with him and the netizens who understood him sigh and feel sad. The camera panned to Hujun's side. Hujun and Kong Kong's relationship was because of their cold personalities, so it was difficult for them to talk together. So Kong Kong quickly became impatient. The screaming that scared Chi-Chi just now was the best example of this. Hujun thought of a way, which was to play a detective game with his son and find clues to solve the secret room to distract himself from his frustration. He didn't expect that they would really find it. Behind the picture frame, there was actually a big hole that hid the camera. Once there was a hole, it could be drilled out. So, Kong Kong ran out and opened the door for his father. Perhaps this anxious mood affected all the children as well. The little glutton, Xian Xian, began to worry about his dinner. Chi-Chi ran over to the door and tried to push it open, but the big wooden door didn't budge. Poplar Fruit saw that his daughter was a little anxious. He smiled and said, "You should use your magic to open the door." Kiki's eyes lit up. She waved her slender and fair arms in the air and suddenly waved towards the door, as if a little fairy was casting a spell. In fact, the little girl understood that her father was just trying to make her happy, but she liked playing with her imagination. After casting the spell, Kiki pushed the door, but it still didn't budge. "No way." Kiki turned around, spread out her hands, and giggled. Poplar Fruit also stood up and performed his spell towards the door. Seeing her father's handsome casting movements, Kiki's attention was no longer on the prison door. She happily ran back to play with her father. "Papa, do you think I'm beautiful today?" The magical girl was addicted to magic and began to show off her beauty again. She was also like this at home. Maybe it had been a long time since she saw other people. Kiki was completely relaxed. She twirled her skirt and stood like a little lady. "Very beautiful. You're as beautiful as a picture." Yanghua smiled. His left and right hand's index fingers and thumbs faced each other to form a rectangular frame. It was just like how we used to take virtual photos of others when we were young. His mouth made clicking sounds. "I know a picture. Papa." Chi-Chi knows a very, very famous pictorial. "That beautiful elder sister looks like this." Chi-Chi pressed her stomach and lowered her body. She even raised her buttocks. What kind of posture was this? Poplar Fruit laughed. "Oh, you're too exaggerated." No, no, no. "Well, I think the foreign sister in the picture is very beautiful," Kiki said. She changed her posture again. Although the little fellow was under Yanggua's protection and wasn't affected by commercial activities, such as shooting advertisements, she was still able to imitate the posture of those beautiful sisters on TV and when she went to Bali with her father. She was able to imitate the posture of those beautiful sisters who were shooting posters. Oh, Poplar Fruit remembered. It turned out that Kiki's action of holding her belly was from the super classic picture of the goddess Monroe. Well, no matter what Monroe was, Poplar Fruit and Kiki had a lot of fun shooting pictures. Later, because of Kiki's amazing performance, Many domestic children's clothing brands wanted to invite Kiki to shoot advertisements. Some rich people even offered a high price of several million yuan. Of course, Poplar Fruit rejected all of them. Poplar Fruit did not care what path Kiki chose when she grew up. But now was an important period for Kiki's growth. Poplar Fruit did not want his daughter to be busy with commercial activities. While they were having fun, on the other side, the pitiful Nua Yi and Lu Yi were sitting in boredom. Why were the two of them pitiful? Nua Yi was pitiful because his father was unreliable. He was almost 40 years old, but he was still like a child who had not grown up. The president of Fire Glory Society did not care about his son's coquettishness and pestering. He only cared about playing with his phone. This scene made many netizens unable to help but ridicule him. But he was such a father. When Nua Yi played with the battery and even put in his mouth, he only sternly reprimanded him. Then there was no then. Lu Yi was pitiful because of Nua Yi. He was not like other children who would cry to attract their father's attention. On the contrary, it might be because of Lu Yi that Nua Yi's character was more tenacious since young. Then he would nag and pester his father to talk. It was unknown where he got so much energy from. One moment he talked about the battery. The next he imagined a pack of wolves. He would nag and nag nonstop. However, Lu Yi did not raise his spirits to look at him. Lu Yi felt like there were 1,000 flies buzzing around his ears. He wished he could use his eyes to shoot out lasers to burn them all. In fact, the program team had added special effects for him. This scene made people feel both helpless and amused. Finally, Lu Yi could not hold back his temper. Nua Yi's nagging made him forget the program team's instructions. He stood up and tried to break the door open himself. Of course, he was not completely unreliable. In front of his son, he still tried to explain his actions to Nua Yi. He was worried that his son would be frightened. With a pong sound, Lu Yi stood awkwardly in front of the door. His kick was not strong enough. It did not open. It did not open. This time he had lost face. He even lost face in front of his son. You are the most beautiful cloud in my sky. Luckily, the adorable Nua Yi did not mock him. He looked at him suspiciously for a long time and then asked in a muffled voice, "It didn't open? How could it not open?" Lu Yi, who did not believe in heresy, tried again. This time, he finally kicked the door open. Nua Yi had completely become his father's fan. This kind of power made him smile from ear to ear. He jumped down and gave his father a high five. He said cheerfully, "I can finally go out." Nua Yi's silly smile, although he wasn't silly, unexpectedly captured the hearts of many older sisters and aunties. From then on, the third season of Daddy gave birth to a silly, sweet, and warm little boy who was loved by everyone and whose flowers bloomed when they saw him. Chapter 1156. Perhaps the production team did not expect such a situation to happen when they were designing the secret room test program. One climbed out of the hole, while the other broke out of the door. It could be said that the father and son pair had successfully destroyed the setup of this segment. Who would not cooperate and stay in the room to test the relationship between father and son, and then run out without waiting for the hour to end? Of course, in terms of results, this segment was still a success. After all, whether it was indifference or intimacy, the relationship between the five-star dads and the cute kids was still evaluated in this segment. The audience could see for themselves. In the future, as the program continued to be recorded, whether or not these relationships would change and what kind of changes there would be a clear contrast because of this segment. Of course, there was still a small twist at the end. Another father and son pair did not play by the rules. The staff expressed that they were full of tears. This time, it was Poplar Fruit and Kiki. After the door opened, Kiki was the first to run to the door. Seeing the uncles at the door looking at the cameras, she shyly leaned against the door frame. Poplar Fruit walked over. Kiki suddenly pulled the door and giggled. "Let's close the door." Poplar Fruit looked at the little rascal with some doubt. He was still preparing to leave with Kiki. "There's no need to open the door. We can continue chatting." Kiki looked up at her father and smiled sweetly. "Is that so?" Poplar Fruit's mood suddenly became very happy. He smiled and asked, "Do you want to continue chatting in the room?" This happiness came out of nowhere. Perhaps it was because the feeling of being needed by his daughter was very good. "Yes, let's not go out." Kiki tiptoed and moved forward with her hand behind her back, as if she was dancing. "All right." Poplar Fruit stretched out his long hands and held the door to prevent Kiki from clipping it. He let his daughter go in first before closing the door. He even had a blissful smile on his face as he said to the cameraman outside the door, "Bye-bye." Kiki had already gone in. She squeezed beside her father's legs and mischievously waved outside. She sweetly said bye-bye. Poplar Fruit and Kiki were really special. Other people were desperately trying to leave, but they were full of joy and wanted to stay and continue to enjoy the happiness of being alone with their father and daughter. Actually, after the segment, there was really an interview. The production team did not lie to children. First, the fathers were interviewed individually one by one. The question was very simple. It was a question of reflection. Talk about your feelings in this segment. Poplar Fruit didn't know how the other fathers felt. Although they would talk about it later, he was very happy. Therefore, when he answered the question, Poplar Fruit's face was still full of smiles. Before the door opened, the village elder said on the radio that we had been inside for an hour. At that time, I thought, really? Was it really that long? Poplar Fruit looked at the camera, the assistant director behind it, and said with a smile, "There are not many opportunities to chat with my daughter happily and quietly. Really, I think the time passed very quickly. More importantly, Chi-Chi likes it too. Although this reaction is within my expectations, I'm still very touched." The interview with the children was to ask them to rate their respective fathers. The one who asked Kiki was the assistant sister who came to pick her up today. She thought it was too old to call her Annie. During the journey, although they were not familiar with each other, their relationship was getting better and better. When Kiki faced her, she was not as shy as she was at the beginning. "My papa has a lot of points. 100 million points. He. The little girl couldn't sit still and twisted in front of the camera, gesturing with one finger. "What if the highest score is only 100 points? How many points do you give your father?" The assistant sister asked. 100 points? Kiki said without hesitation. "Wow, you gave him such a high score." Under the assistant sister's praise, Kiki giggled. Then the assistant sister asked again, "Why is that? Is it because you like your father very much?" This time, the little fellow did not answer. Perhaps it was because she felt that her love for her father could not be told to others. Or perhaps it was because she had not played enough just now. Her mouth mumbled a bunch of nonsense, and then she performed her magic. She asked mischievously, "Do you know what I'm talking about?" Kiki's cute and beautiful appearance and strange behavior made many people fall in love with her at first sight. Later, Poplar Fruit watched TV and saw Kiki's chanting. He raised both hands and feet to guarantee that although the little girl knew a lot of foreign languages, this time she was definitely chanting for fun. Poplar Fruit did not understand anything. Since they arrived a day early, they spent the night in the hotel in Nanhu Province. After dinner and taking a shower, Poplar Fruit coaxed Kiki to sleep early. After all, they still had to go overseas tomorrow to start a 3-day and 2-night-long shooting schedule. The more it was like this, the more Kiki needed to rest. Of course, the adults' work and rest were much later. They had agreed during dinner. The 5 fathers came out of their rooms one after another and went to the corridor of the hotel to sit and chat in the lounge on this floor. The main purpose was to improve their relationship. After all, most of them had just met today. "Teacher Lin, why did you only come out now?" Lu Yi asked with a smile. Lin Yongjian was indeed the last to come out, and he looked a little depressed. It's a long story. Lin Yongjian sighed and shook his head. However, he could not help but say, "Actually, when the door opened and the broadcast said, 'Welcome to Where Daddy Goes,' I almost cried." Everyone was stunned and did not say anything as they listened to him explain. When Dejun was with me, he was not as lively as at home. In the end, he was sleeping in the room. I'm a little worried that I made a mistake in accepting this invitation. From Lin Yongjian's nagging, Poplar Fruit, and the others realized that when it came to love children, Teacher Lin was no worse than anyone else. At that moment, he was not thinking about anything else. He was worried that Dejun would not perform well on the show and would be criticized by the audience. Although Dejun was still young, as a father, he knew that his son still cared about what others thought of him. Sigh. At least Dejun stayed in the room with you. Arkong did not want to stay for even a moment, Jun said with a smile. He wanted to change the topic. After all, Teacher Lin's words were impulsive. Sometimes, you can really feel the disdain in his eyes. In comparison, Teacher Lin, I don't know how many times my heart has been sliced. After all, Jun's heart was more tenacious. Lu Yi was more careless. He smiled and said, Teacher Lin, I suggest that you ask Yanghua for advice. He was with his daughter and couldn't bear to leave. Although Lin Yongjian looked over, Poplar Fruit understood that they had just met. Furthermore, Teacher Lin was much older than him. If he wanted to teach him, it would not be his turn to teach him. Perhaps in the future, they would really become good friends because of the show. Then it could be discussed, but not now. Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Lin Yongjian, Teacher Lin, you don't have to worry. You should be able to tell from the first 2 seasons that many children did not show it at the beginning. However, as they slowly got used to the show and gradually deepened their relationship with their father through the activities, they would become more lively and would be more willing to participate. This requires a process. I understand. Lin Yongjian readily agreed and nodded. Chapter 11:57. The crew of Where Are We Going, Dad, along with the 5 pairs of star dads and cute children, took a plane to Shishan Province's Yulin City early in the morning. Here, they would begin the first journey of the 3rd season of Where Are We Going, Dad? Of course, paper cannot hide fire. This large group of people majestically appeared at the airport. Even though they were already very low-key, there were still tourists and locals who discovered them. Then, the news quickly spread on the internet. This also confirmed the guest list that the media on the internet were fighting to report. Through the photos that were circulating on Weibo, the media also had more places to speculate about the program. But no matter how the media discussed it, the performance of each child still needed to be shown later on in the program. Of course, it was not to say that in this program, the adult's performance was not eye-catching. With the performance of a stargazer, he had repeatedly snatched away the attention of others. That was the president of Hua Hua Society, Lu Yi. This guy was like a little princess who never grew up. Not to mention that he was unreliable. His playful heart was even more serious than his son's. Some viewers joked that Lu Yi was actually the 6th child in the 3rd season. This was not an exaggeration at all. In comparison, Poplar Fruit was much more well-behaved. At best, he played the role of a bodyguard and nanny who accompanied the prince to study. No, to accompany the princess on a tour. After getting off the plane, there was still a few hours of driving to reach the village where the final filming would take place. Along the way, Poplar Fruit was not only not worried about his daughter's popularity, he even tried to coax his daughter to sleep. They woke up too early in the morning, and she did not sleep on the plane. I'm not sleepy, Kiki waved her hand and said happily, Daddy, when I think about where Daddy is going today, I can't sleep at all. All right then, let's sleep for a while at noon. Poplar Fruit nodded helplessly. He began to chat with Kiki. Now, do you recognize your brothers? Poplar Fruit asked. No, they're all brothers. Kiki was actually quite sensitive to the issue of age. She corrected him seriously. Brother Xian is younger than me. Yes, it's 2 months younger. Poplar Fruit chuckled. In fact, he knew why. Other than being more dependent on her father, the little girl was more willing to be an elder sister than a younger sister when she was with other children. Previously, little Seven was an example. Kiki really liked to play with her because little Seven would always run over and call her sister. Poplar Fruit was puzzled by Kiki's sister complex. Didn't I inherit it from you? You're also a siscon. Song Jiwen had once exposed the truth, but Poplar Fruit refused to admit it. Little brother Xuan's hair is curly. It's a bit like Grandma's hair. Papa, do you think Xuan's hair has been permed? I've never seen a kid with curly hair in kindergarten. Kiki asked curiously. I don't think so. It should be naturally curly. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. He had never paid attention to this problem because he thought that such a young child would not have permed his hair. In fact, Poplar Fruit's guess was wrong. Schwan's hair was really permed. He used to have straight hair. It was only recently that he went on the show and spent more than 6 hours in the salon to get this kind of hairstyle that looked like instant noodles. More importantly, after spending so much time, Xian did not cry or make a fuss. He liked it very much. He was really a fashionable little boy. "Do you like Brother Xian?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Kiki had mentioned Xian many times in the car today. "I like him. Brother Xian is super cute." Kiki giggled. "And Brother Nui, he talks very funny. That's not a younger brother. Nui is an older brother." Poplar Fruit laughed. Papa was right this time. Brother Nui is more than half a year older than you. "Is that so? But I don't think Brother Nui is tall." Kiki pursed her lips and thought for a while. "He's only a little taller than Brother Kong. That's because boys only grow taller when they're 8 or 9 years old. Kiki is a girl, so it's normal for her to grow taller," Poplar Fruit said. "All right, Kiki, when you go to the recording area, you have to talk to Brother Dajuan more often," Poplar Fruit finally said to his daughter. "Brother Dajuan? But Brother Dajuan doesn't talk to Kiki much." Kiki pouted. "That's because Brother Dajuan is shy." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "He actually wants to play with you guys, Kiki, but he's too shy, so he doesn't talk much. If you talk to him more, he'll be more willing to play with you guys." Kiki suddenly understood. She nodded vigorously and said, "I understand. It's just like Sister Huasu in kindergarten." Sister Huasu was also shy at first, but after Kiki introduced her to other children, Sister Huasu started to play with us. That example was a little different. Kiki's kindergarten was an international school. Little Huasu was a Chinese girl like Kiki, but she didn't speak a foreign language like Kiki, so she was slower to integrate. However, for Kiki, the logic was the same. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, "That's right. Kiki, you have to be the bridge." At this time, a little bug flew into the car. To be exact, it was a little beetle. It usually hid in the bushes and flowers. Poplar Fruit, who was born in the countryside, recognized it. He also knew that if he killed it with his hands, there would be an unpleasant smell on his hands. The plot of the beetle was the original version. Xiaohan said that this plot was a little strange. Why would a little beetle fly into the car? On the hot and dusty Lust Plateau, would the car open the window and drive? Anyway, this plot was good. After all, it led to the prologue of the first trip in the 3rd season and the advertisement. Hey, the little beetle flew in, circled twice, and landed on Kiki's fluffy princess dress. Kiki cried. Poplar Fruit thought that his daughter was scared. He smiled and said, "It's okay. Don't be afraid. Dad will take it away for you now." Poplar Fruit's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. Before he finished speaking, the little beetle kicked its legs desperately between his 2 fingers. "Papa, don't pinch the little bug." Who knew that Kiki's cry was not because she was scared. Instead, she anxiously called her father. Poplar Fruit looked at her in confusion. "Papa, if you hold it like this, the little bug will hurt." Kiki looked at Poplar Fruit's hand with distressed eyes. Ordinary girls would be afraid of little bugs. Unexpectedly, Kiki was not afraid at all. Instead, she was quite protective of the fairer sex. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and had to put in his palm. Then he handed it to Kiki and asked with a smile, "Well, Papa won't pinch it. Kiki, do you want to see it?" Okay. Kiki happily came over and was about to reach out and touch the little beetle. However, the little beetle had been scared. As soon as it had a chance, it immediately flew up and flew through the open window to the Lust Plateau. It flew away, Kiki said with some regret. However, she did not have much regret because the car was about to reach their destination. Chapter 1158. Papa, what are these big bamboo poles for? Kiki leaned against the car window and curiously looked at the grassy pits on the plateau road that looked like a chessboard and the bamboo poles in her mouth. Poplar Fruit looked around and smiled. "How are these bamboo poles?" "These are saplings that the farmers here planted on the mountain." "Do they still need to plant trees?" Kiki had only seen tall and big trees, especially the thick trees in the virgin forests of Guishan province. She had never seen saplings that didn't even have leaves. Yes, the soil erosion on the plateau here is serious. The farmers want to protect the ecological balance. Poplar Fruit paused and changed to a simpler explanation to Kiki. In order to let Kiki have shade, they have to plant trees. In a few years, the saplings will grow into the big trees near our house. There may also be many that will wither before they grow up, but Poplar Fruit didn't explain this to Kiki. The car had already stopped by the side. Poplar Fruit unfastened Kiki's seatbelt and took her from the safety seat and said, "We're here. Let's get out of the car. Take the luggage." Kiki looked back and jumped out of the car with her father's help. She was still thinking about her things and was afraid that she would leave them in the car. "No need to take the luggage. It will be sent over later," the program staff said. He pointed to the 3 pairs of father and son who had arrived a few seconds earlier but were already climbing up. "Let's go up first. There's a welcoming ceremony." Poplar Fruit and Kiki were not in a hurry because behind them, Zhou Shimin and his son's car had also stopped, and they were waiting for their friends to go together. "Papa, the color of this mountain looks like my dress." After standing with her father for a while, Kiki discovered a new continent and happily shared it with her father. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and smiled. "Yes, but I think your dress is more beautiful. Although it's yellow, it's as bright as the sun." "I think so too, haha." Kiki laughed happily. Kiki was wearing a beautiful, bright yellow princess dress today. She was even wearing the princess crown she wore yesterday. In the camera, she was as beautiful as a flower. She was not a princess, but she was even more beautiful than one. Little Fatty Xian was mesmerized by her this morning. The moment he got out of the car, before the door was even closed, his father got out of the car and slipped under the car door. He ran over to Kiki. Little Fatty Xian and his father were dressed very fashionably today. They wore flowery shirts as jackets and even wore a pair of cool sunglasses. Poplar Fruit dressed his daughter up like a flower fairy. In fact, it was Zheng Yujie and Fong Beibei's suggestion, but he didn't pay much attention to his own dressing. He didn't wear Givenchy's clothes. The program didn't allow it. After all, Givenchy didn't pay them advertising fees. He only wore a very ordinary white t-shirt and pants. The reason was that he felt that wearing other colors under the hot sun of the Lust Plateau was simply torture. However, if a person was a clothes hanger, then he would look good wearing anything. Take Poplar Fruit, for example. Ordinary clothes, even a white t-shirt that many people couldn't pull off. On him, there was an indescribable sense of fashion. Little Fatty Xian stood there in a daze. He looked up at Kiki, who was only 2 months older than him, but taller than him by a head. Even through the glasses, she could feel the fiery joy in his eyes. He seemed to like Kiki very much. However, he was too shy to go up and greet Kiki. Yesterday, he performed well because there were many children around to offset the unfamiliarity. But now, there were 2 children standing face to face. Little Fatty Xian immediately shrank back. Kiki was also a little shy. She and Xian had only known each other for a day. They hadn't reached the level of familiarity where they could play without any worries. Moreover, Xian's father, Uncle Zhou Shimin, was also standing there. Kiki felt even more embarrassed. "Wow, sister is so beautiful, isn't she?" Zhou Shimin came over and smiled. Xian, did you say hello to sister?" Xian shook his head, but his eyes never left Kiki, who was like a fairy in front of him. The surrounding staff and the audience who saw this scene on TV couldn't help but burst out laughing. This child was too interesting. He was so infatuated with his beautiful sister, and he didn't hide it all. He's too shy to speak, Zhou Shimin explained to Poplar Fruit with a smile. In fact, they were all 3 or 4 years old. Xian wasn't 4 years old yet. This kind of behavior would only make people laugh, but they didn't have any opinions about him. Poplar Fruit understood this, so he smiled generously. "It's okay, Kiki. You have to take the initiative to say hello to your brother." "Hello, little brother Xian." Kiki snuggled up on her father's thigh. She was still a little shy, but she was much braver than Xian. This was because Xian was still foolishly smiling after Kiki took the initiative to say hello. Kiki is also wearing a skirt today. She's as beautiful as a princess, isn't she, Xian? Zhou Shimin squatted down and smiled. Xian nodded vigorously, but he still didn't have the courage to speak. However, Zhou Shimin's words still had an effect. Kiki, who loved to be praised as a princess, smiled with her eyes as beautiful as the crescent moon. She suddenly felt that the distance between her and this uncle in front of her had lessened. Kiki, you go with your brother. We should go up the mountain. Poplar Fruit decided to let Kiki take the initiative. Just like he said in the car before, the big sister had to drive the mood of the other brothers. Come, little brother Xian, let's go together. Kiki generously stretched out her right hand, which was wearing a long golden glove. Take off the glove first and give it to your father. Poplar Fruit said, you don't have to wear the glove. Although wearing the glove made her look like a princess, Kiki didn't particularly care about her image. She obediently took off the glove. Xian's hand was held by his sister, and he immediately beamed with joy. His eyes couldn't be seen, but from his raised eyebrows and the corners of his mouth, one could see that his mood was as bright as the sun when his sister Kiki held his hand. They started to climb the mountain with the team in front of them. The hillside was overgrown with weeds, so it wasn't as easy to slip as a slope. However, it was still a little steep, so Poplar Fruit held Kiki's hand and walked in front. Kiki held Xian's hand and walked in the middle. Zhou Shimin carefully held his son and walked at the back. Be careful here, Poplar Fruit warned. Xiaoxin's sister. This somewhat childish and somewhat hoarse voice actually came from Xian, who had been shy for a long time just now. Although he was just looking at his sister and forgot to speak, little chubby Xian still had the heart to protect the flower. P.S. The main text is already over 2,000 words. These are all free. Let me explain a little more about the plot of the Where Are We Going, Daddy program. Since Poplar Fruit brought Kiki to participate in the program, then of course it will be from the perspective of the father and daughter to watch or participate in the program. The other children's plots can be understood by watching the original video. There will occasionally be the audience's perspective like in the first few chapters, or God's perspective. This is only necessary for the writing of the story, and there won't be too many. In addition, perhaps you will see that sometimes Kiki's plot overlaps with the original version. That is because the plot in the original version was really good, and Xiao Han liked it so much that he couldn't bear to give it up. When Xiao Han saw where his father went, he was shocked, because Xiao Han found that 80% of Xia Tian's plot of Kiki was in line with Xiao Han's design. Too similar, too coincidental. One must know that when Xiao Han started writing this book and had a rough idea of Kiki's character and image, the second season hadn't even finished broadcasting yet. Everyone can also relate Xia Tian's character image to Kiki, so that everyone can have a visual image of Kiki. Therefore, even though Xiao Han tried his best to write a different third season of Where Are We Going, Daddy, but from the character's point of view, there shouldn't be much difference between Kiki and the original Xia Tian's performance in the program. If everyone sees it, please understand. Chapter 1159. After a while, the bright and beautiful princess with big eyes and her instant noodle-headed piglet rider were about to climb to the top of the mountain. Suddenly, a loud and clear singing voice floated from the top of the mountain. Listening to this tone, the strong smell of the yellow highland rushed over, and the accent of the western Shaanxi region, under the control of the singer, turned into a rather demonic howl. Wow! Kiki's first reaction was fear. She pulled brother Xian and ran behind her father. Xian didn't pay attention to the singing voice at the top of the mountain at all. He happily broke free from his father's hand and happily followed beside his sister. Kiki, look! Who is that person riding a donkey on the mountain? Poplar Fruit pulled Kiki and said with a smile. Kiki stuck her head out, the princess crown on her head shining brightly. After getting used to the demonic voice that filled her ears, Kiki finally calmed down. Looking at it, she immediately smiled and said, I know, that is the village chief. On the top of the mountain, the 5 pairs of stars, fathers, and children gathered. Kiki, who arrived a little later, held her fluffy skirt. Worried that the clean and beautiful princess skirt would be stained with mud, she curiously left her father's side and walked around the village chief. "Village chief, I know you are the village chief." Kiki giggled and then asked, "Village chief, why are you riding a donkey?" "This is not a donkey, it is a fake donkey." Dejun, who Poplar Fruit always thought was very shy, was very active today. He walked up and said loudly to Kiki, "A's donkey? A family's donkey?" Kiki scratched her head and looked admiringly at Dejun, who knew so much, and asked, "What is a family's donkey?" Kiki had actually seen donkeys before, but the one in front of her was really strange. It is a fake one. It is not a real donkey. Dejun was also at a loss for words. "Village chief, can I touch it?" Kiki asked enviously. "Of course." The village head, Li Rue, slightly bent down so that Kiki could reach his big red donkey. Kiki patted it lightly with her hand and said with a smile, "So it's made of paper. The village chief is riding a paper donkey." After messing around for a while, they could finally begin. The village chief spoke in Mandarin with a Shaanxi accent that he had not learned for a long time. "My fellow countrymen, welcome to..." When Kiki heard the village chief speak, she was also overjoyed. She even imitated the village chief's tone. Needless to say, Kiki's talent in languages was as strong as Poplar Fruit's. She had only listened to it once, but she was able to learn almost the same as what the village chief said. Do you still remember the second season when the children were talking to the villagers about their dialect? At that time, Kiki had learned quite well from watching TV. However, Poplar Fruit did not allow Kiki to continue her performance. He patted Kiki's shoulder and said, "When the village chief is speaking, you have to listen carefully. How can you imitate others? That's not polite." "I am the village chief, Li Rue. Welcome everyone." After the opening speech, the adults all started clapping. As for Kiki, she was so excited that she raised her white and tender arms. She had been looking forward to this program for more than 2 years. Under the guidance of the village chief, everyone looked at the hillside on the other side of the plateau. A large group of villagers wearing red robes had already arranged themselves into a formation. The long snake formation, the circular formation, it was a magnificent sight to behold. "Fellow countrymen, your loved ones are here. Enter the village." The village chief waved the flag and shouted. Gongs, drums, and flutes were played. The men and women danced the most simple and passionate dance. In an instant, the yellow soil flew and the drums reverberated. The festive atmosphere awakened the entire plateau. There. Luye's eyes were sharp as he called Nua to look towards the front of the crowd. Poplar Fruit also looked over. He suddenly laughed. The villager with a white towel wrapped around his waist was producer Sia. He squatted there and carefully lit the firecrackers. Then, he ran away with his head shrunk. "Kiki, it's time to light the firecrackers." Poplar Fruit pointed for Kiki to see. It was a bit like the traditional opening ceremony of a movie. However, it seemed like our program was more ostentatious. Everyone was dressed in red. This meant that the program would have a good performance when it was broadcasted. Walking past the hillside, Daddy Xing and the cute children were also welcomed by the singing and dancing villagers as they walked towards the village. With so many people, Poplar Fruit held his daughter on top of his head and let her sit on his neck as they walked forward. Sitting high, they could see further. Kiki giggled on her father's neck. It seemed like she still liked the lively atmosphere. "Dad, I want to sit too." Xian saw that Kiki had run to such a high place. He quickly pulled his father's hand. "You want to sit too?" Zhou Shimin was shocked, but he still carried his son. However, he couldn't help but complain. Xian, you need to lose weight. You eat so much every day. How can I carry you?" Of course, Zhou Shimin was just joking with his son. How could he not handle a chubby child who only weighed a few kilograms? If he couldn't even handle his son, how could he become an Olympic champion? Xian urged his father to walk closer. Xian began to smile foolishly at Sister Kiki. The surrounding noise seemed to have disappeared. In his eyes, there was only the little sister who was like a sunflower sprinkled with sunlight. But Chi-Chi didn't notice that the aunties who were dancing the Yanko song around her and the uncles who were beating the waist drum with all their might had already attracted her attention. She hugged her father's head and watched the villagers' performance with a feast for her eyes. "Come down for a walk, okay?" It had to be said that little chubby Xian was indeed fat. Zhou Shimin, who was 1.6 meters tall, could carry him for a while. However, if they kept walking like this, he really couldn't stand it. Poplar Fruit heard his voice. He also said to Kiki, "Kiki, let's walk together? You can walk with Xian. The other brothers don't need to be carried by Dad." It was true. Nuo Yi and Jun were walking hand in hand. The two of them were talking loudly about something. It was too noisy, so Yangwu couldn't hear them. Kong Kong was walking with them, but she was more aloof and didn't want to hold hand with her brother. Poplar Fruit obviously wasn't tired. He just wanted Kiki to carry Xian, who was unwilling to come down. Kiki obediently came down. As expected, when Xian saw Kiki come down, he immediately shouted that he wanted to come down. "You're ignoring us, right?" Zhou Shimin saw Xian come down and naturally turn around. Then, he laughed and hugged Kiki's sister. His voice was a little broken as he shouted, "I'll take Xian brother away." Kiki looked back at her father and giggled. She pulled Xian forward. "Kiki, your dress." Poplar Fruit shouted. Xian immediately helped Kiki hold up her dress. He really acted like a knight, just a little chubby. The two children happily left their fathers behind and walked forward. People couldn't help but sigh. They were really at an innocent age. Tomorrow is National Day. I wish everyone a happy National Day. Also, there are double monthly votes for National Day. Xiaohan shamelessly begs everyone to vote for him. Chapter 1160. Children, let's go together. Unknowingly, as the cute children played hand in hand, everyone came to the open space at the entrance of the village. Yangwu saw with a glance that their luggage had already been sent to the open space. The village chief had already taken off his donkey suit. A large red cloth was wrapped around his waist, and a white towel was wrapped around his head. He was bare-shouldered and wearing a short jacket. "My skirt is too long." Kiki began to feel that beauty was a burden. "Sister, let me help you." Little Chu Xian, who had been following closely, lowered his head and helped Sister Kiki lift her skirt. "Kiki, come and gather." Yangwu called out, and Chi-Chi ran over with a smile on her face. Little chubby Xian didn't even pay attention to his father as he followed behind Chi-Chi, bouncing up and down. The adults all laughed. Poplar Fruit felt that if they went home at this time, and Zhou Shimin didn't pay attention, little Chu Xian would really be taken away by him. "Xian, come back." Zhou Shimin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When you grow up and get married, you have to go home too. Xian, who had forgotten his father because of his sister, ran back like a little meatball. Xian is so cute. Kiki smiled happily as she leaned on her father. It was time to choose a house. When they learned that the houses here were all cave dwellings, Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Kiki, "Kiki, the houses here are different from the ones we live in. Everyone dug a cave in the mountain to live in." "Good. That's great." Chi-Chi clapped her hands happily. She was still immersed in the joyous atmosphere from earlier. However, when the village head took out the props to choose a house, Kiki began to come back to her senses. The little girl had watched 2 seasons of Where Did Daddy Go and memorized all the plots. She naturally knew what it meant to choose a house. "Papa, how are we going to choose? Will they choose the worst house?" Kiki pulled her father's hand and asked Poplar Fruit to squat down and listen to her. She was still a little shy and didn't dare to let everyone hear. "It's fine. You can choose whatever you like." Poplar Fruit chuckled and said, "Whether you live well or poorly, it's actually a kind of experience. Anyway, Daddy will be with you. What are you afraid of?" "That's true. Then let's take the worst house." Kiki rolled her eyes as she hugged her father's neck and said with a smile. Poplar Fruit almost sprained his waist because of his daughter's sudden change in attitude. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he rubbed her little head and said, "Okay, village head, village head." Kiki held her father's hand and walked in front of the village chief. She raised her head and said with a serious smile, "Village chief, I want the worst house from Papa. I also want the worst house." Xian, who was still looking at the things in the bamboo basket with his head down, heard the voice and moved. He also straightened up and said in a childish voice, "Yeah, it's hopeless, hopeless." Zhou Shimin was speechless. The active Lu Yi ran over and hugged him and laughed. "No," the village chief refused. He explained with a smile and comforted the children. If they voluntarily chose, then this super interesting part of choosing a house would be meaningless. In this case, Poplar Fruit discussed with Kiki and volunteered to be the last to let the other brothers choose first. "Everyone look here. There's a little lamb, a broom, flower, corn, and a paper cut." The village chief introduced, "Whichever one you choose, you will live in that cave." "I like the little lamb," Kiki whispered in her father's ear and said, "Papa, can I play with the little lamb? It's so cute." When Chi-Chi saw the little lamb covered in white fur, with its red nose and mouth, lying weakly in the bamboo basket, she felt as if the softness in her heart had been struck. However, she said that she would be the last to choose, so Kiki could only watch as the first to choose. Kong Gidge picked the little lamb. "Everyone pay attention. You can't go back on your choice. You have to live wherever you choose." The village chief reminded them. "You like to play with the little lamb?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "Sure. You can ask Kong Gidge." Kiki timidly looked at the cold and domineering CEO, Kong Gidge. She pulled her father's clothes and said, "Papa, I don't dare." "It's okay. Kong Gidge is a very good person." Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "Go and ask Kong Gidge. Kong Gidge, can I borrow the little lamb to see?" Kiki mustered up her courage to negotiate with Kong Gidge. It was surprisingly smooth. Kong nodded and said, "Okay, you play." Although she still had a cool expression, Kong was actually a good child with a cold face and a kind heart. "Thank you, Kong Gidge." Kiki smiled sweetly. Kong was a little hesitant. She wanted to just wave her hand, but in the end, she said, "No need." When choosing a house, the most active person was Lu Yi. He would laugh for a while, frown for a while, and whisper to Hu Jun as if he had gone crazy. However, those who were familiar with Lu Yi knew that this was normal. He was originally a little princess who could not grow up. Lu Yi sometimes felt that the worst house would be Hu Jun's family's lamb, and sometimes felt that it would be Zhou Shimin's family's corn. His expressions were so exaggerated that it made people laugh. But in reality, variety shows should be like this. For a father like Poplar Fruit, who only accompanied his daughter, he did not have many opportunities to appear on screen. The reason why he could still appear on screen was because of Kiki's outstanding performance and Poplar Fruit's appearance. Finally, only Lu Yi and Poplar Fruit's family were left. Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Lu Yi, "It's your turn to choose. You guys go first." Lu Yi said politely. Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki, who was not willing to let go of the little lamb, and said with a smile, "It's okay." She said that she would be the last one to choose, so she will be the last one to choose. Hence, Lu Yi called Nuo Yi over and pointed at the broom and window ornaments in the bamboo basket. He told him that these were the last two choices. Then he stood up and covered his face and said, "Choose yourself. Daddy won't watch. Fate is in your hands." In the end, he accidentally tripped over the luggage on the floor. The audience burst out in laughter. The program team even added a caption that said, "Mercilessly tripped by fate." In the end, Nuo Yi chose the broom. This was also the room that Lu Yi thought was the best. He always thought that the program team was fooling everyone. The worst house was definitely the best. However, the audience who had been watching the program all this while were already secretly laughing. The village chief's silent laughter and Lu Ye's exaggerated comments repeatedly appeared. Under the editing of the editors, all these signs made people feel that the house that Lu Ye's family chose would definitely not be any better. Tomorrow is National Day. I wish everyone a happy National Day. Also, National Day is double the monthly votes. Xiaohan shamelessly begs everyone to vote more monthly votes greater than or equal to. Chapter 1161. Before we're going to look at the house, there was one more step. It was also the step that Kiki was very familiar with, handing her phone, toys, and snacks. When she was watching TV and saw that Brother Kimmy was unwilling to hand over his toys, she said, if it was Kiki, Kiki would definitely hand over all her toys to the village chief. These words were easy for Kiki, who was only around 2 years old at the time. If she really handed over all her toys, she would definitely cry nonstop. Even Poplar Fruit couldn't handle it. Fortunately, Kiki was now 4 years old, and her thoughts were much more mature than before. After hesitating for a moment, she took the initiative to let her father open the leather box. She took out her Barbie dolls and other toys that she would bring with her when traveling. She even took out Kiki's favorite yellow duck when she was bathing. She carefully placed them in the plastic box. Uncle Village Chief, you have to take good care of Lucy and Helen. You can't hurt them. Kiki reluctantly stood at the side and reminded the village chief. Okay, Kiki, don't worry. When you go home in 3 days, the village chief will definitely return them to you intact, the village chief said with a smile. Clang! Before he finished speaking, Brother Dajuan threw something in while holding on to it. Yeah. A group of crows flew in front of the dumbfounded village chief and Kiki. The audience laughed. Chi-Chi's lips immediately pouted. Her sunny face turned cloudy, and she was about to cry. The village chief didn't know how important those Barbie dolls were in Kiki's heart. Poplar Fruit quickly came up and hugged his daughter's little head. He smiled comfortingly and said, It's okay, it's okay. It's not broken. Our Barbie dolls are of much better quality. The clothes don't look good anymore. Kiki pouted and complained. They don't look bad. Look, they're still fine. The Poplar Fruit pushed aside the debris on top and pointed out to Kiki. It was really intact. Kiki's cloudy mood gradually cleared up. Poplar Fruit pointed at Xian, who was arguing with Zhou Shimin to distract Kiki. Look, Brother Xian doesn't want to hand over the snacks. As his sister, shouldn't you go and comfort him? After Kiki left, Poplar Fruit and the village head looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Dajuan and Kong Kong, the two kids with a strong sense of justice, joined forces to form an inspection team. Not only were they proactive in handing in their belongings, one of them even snatched his father's phone, and the other reported to the village chief that his father had stolen a packet of pickles. It was a stark contrast to the children's performance in the previous 2 seasons. However, anyone could see that the 2 kids weren't acting. They both had hearts of gold. That was the attraction of this kind of reality show. The children didn't hide their feelings. On the other hand, Xian's performance was the most normal. He didn't want to hand over his snacks. The reason was ridiculous. He complained that he was always hungry. He really was a little foodie. The curly-haired Xian's feelings for food really made the audience want to laugh and pity him. At this time, Kiki, who had received instructions from her father, walked over and asked Zhou Shimin, What's wrong with Brother Xian? Zhou Shimin told her and then asked Kiki, Did you hand over your snacks? I did. Kiki waved her hands and said generously, Look, your sister has already handed them over. You have to learn from your sister. Zhou Shimin continued to persuade his son. Xian was still a little hesitant. He pouted and muttered, But I'm hungry. At this time, his voice was very small. He didn't want to make a fool of himself in front of his favorite sister Kiki. Xian, it's okay. Kiki walked closer. She didn't care about her beautiful dress. She bent down and supported her knees to persuade her brother. If you're hungry, you can come to me. My papa can make delicious food for you. My papa's food is super delicious. On one hand, there was the promise of delicious food. On the other hand, there was the persuasion of his favorite sister Kiki. Xian, who had a gloomy face, immediately stood up and said in a loud voice, Okay. He stood up, took out a box of candy from his bag, and handed it to the village chief who was standing aside and watching. The village chief praised Xian, but Xian wasn't listening at all. He looked at Sister Chi, who was giving him a cute thumbs up, and smiled so widely that his eyes couldn't be seen. He was so happy that he felt like he was floating in the air. Maybe Poplar Fruit didn't care, but in fact, Kiki's performance was all thanks to Fong Bei's encouraging education. Kiki was also subtly influenced by her brother. She knew how to give her brother some encouragement and help him do better. After a long time, everyone was hungry, let alone the children led by Xian. The program team specially invited the local children. The 5 little ones swarmed towards the fragrant noodle stall. Especially Kiki, she was not only hungry, but also curious. She had been circling around the steaming noodle stall, and from time to time, she would look over. Zhou Shimin was worried that they would touch the hot soup, so he quickly said, "Everyone stay away. Don't touch it." Xian, who had been complaining about how hungry he was, immediately forgot about his own hunger when he saw Chi-Chi's sister walk past him. He eagerly followed her and pulled up her skirt, even calling out considerately, "Princess, don't burn yourself." The warm-hearted handsome brother also pulled his 2 younger siblings away, telling them to stay away from her. Just now, when Kiki turned around, she was almost hugged by Xian. Unfortunately, his arms were short. Fortunately, it was just a touch. Poplar Fruit's eyelids twitched. "Papa, I want to eat noodles." Kiki didn't feel anything. She turned her head and said to her father, "This doesn't seem to be noodles." Before Poplar Fruit's voice died away, the village chief had already begun to explain. It turned out that this was the local famous rice flour press. The rice flour press in front of everyone was used to press the dough into long, round noodles. Well, in fact, it was also noodles, but the method was different. Lu Yexin jumped up and gave it a try. In the end, he carelessly broke the pressure bar and was reprimanded by a few righteous children. Broken. The villagers had to think about it. Several people tried to press the broken press lever. Everyone knew the principle of the lever. After the lever was broken, it took a lot of effort. "Brother Zhou, help me take care of Kiki." Poplar Fruit rolled up his sleeves and said to Zhou Shimin with a smile, "Let me try. Is this okay?" The village chief looked at Poplar Fruit doubtfully. The villagers also said that this had become a pure labor. Poplar Fruit, a big star with delicate skin and tender flesh, shouldn't perform. "It's okay." Poplar Fruit took the press lever and said with a smile, "I'm very strong." "Papa, come on." Kiki was completely excited. She waved her small hands and cheered for her father. "Uncle, come on." "Uncle Poplar Fruit, come on." At first, it was Xian. Later, a group of children shouted. It was very lively. Even the cold President Kong shouted a few times. "It's a new month. It's just double the monthly votes. Everyone, vote more monthly votes." Chapter 1162. With the children's encouragement and his daughter's encouragement, Poplar Fruit exerted some force in his right arm. The broken lever that required 2 people to press down slowly lowered, and a row of round noodles fell into the boiling water. "Wow, Uncle Poplar Fruit is amazing." The 5 children became the kings of cheering. Thanks to Poplar Fruit's strength, the hungry children were able to quickly eat the noodles. After the scalding, they were scooped out and poured in the gravy before they were ready to eat. Lu Yi, who wanted to make up for his mistake, wanted to give the first bowl to Kiki, but Poplar Fruit quickly stopped him. He smiled and said, "Brother Yi, give this bowl to another child. She doesn't eat spicy food." Kiki also waved her hand and politely said, "Thank you, Uncle, but I don't eat spicy food." In the end, Poplar Fruit sped up and brought the bowl to his daughter's side. There was no table, so Poplar Fruit squatted down and held the bowl, letting Kiki pick up the chopsticks to eat the noodles. The little girl was also hungry, so she ate in big mouthfuls, completely disregarding her princess image. At this moment, in a corner that no one noticed, but the cameraman faithfully recorded, Kong Kong, who had finished eating early, was picking up the pen and recording board that the staff had scattered all over the floor and did not have time to clean up. She then carried them to the village chief. The village chief then praised Kong Kong, who had silently done a good deed. However, Hu Jun did not express his feelings in front of the camera, or rather in front of his son, so he still had his usual poker face. Poplar Fruit saw this and was worried that Hu Jun would dampen the child's enthusiasm. He also wanted Kiki to learn from Kong Kong's dedication. He held Kiki's hand and smiled to the children, including Kiki, and said, "Brother Kong Kong did a very good deed just now. Let's all applaud for him, okay? Brother Kong Kong is so awesome." Kiki was the first to respond to her father's call. She clapped hard and looked at Brother Kong Kong with sparkling eyes. Even the cold President Kong felt a little embarrassed. He turned his head and walked to the side amidst everyone's applause. Although Kong Kong didn't have much of a reaction, he was actually very happy. But just like his father, he kept his feelings bottled up in his heart. This was not good. After finishing their meal, the 5 pairs of adorable fathers began to take their children to the new house that they had just chosen. Poplar Fruit held Kiki's hand and prepared to look for their house, but Kiki expressed her reluctance to part with Brother Kong Kong's little lamb. "It's okay. We'll stay in this village. After we take a nap, we'll go to Brother Kong Kong's house to play with the lambs." Poplar Fruit smiled as she carried her daughter with one hand and dragged her suitcase with the other. "Little lamb? Little Yang?" Kiki's attention suddenly shifted and she giggled. "What are you laughing at? What happened to the lamb? Is it that funny?" Poplar Fruit still didn't understand. Kiki hugged her father's neck and said with a smile, "Papa, your surname is Yang. My surname is Yang. You are Big Yang. Then I am Little Yang. Little Yang likes Little Yang. Little Yang likes Big Yang. Big Yang likes Little Yang. Does Little Yang like Big Yang?" It was like a tongue twister. The cameraman next to them was confused by Kiki's words, but it was not difficult for Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit immediately understood his daughter's meaning. He laughed heartily and said, "Daddy knows that Little Yang likes Little Yang, but it doesn't necessarily like Big Yang. Xiao Yang, can you go and coax Xiao Yang and make it like Xiao Yang too?" "Okay." Kiki also understood her father's words and happily agreed. This fast tongue-twister dialogue was retained by the editor, but they still asked Poplar Fruit to add the correct subtitles for their dialogue. When Kiki got the last window flower, Poplar Fruit really thought that it was the worst house. On the way, when Poplar Fruit said this to Kiki, Kiki immediately nodded and agreed with her father's opinion. "What did you think?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "What did Papa think?" Kiki also looked at her father with a smile. Her big eyes were like clear water drops, reflecting the blue sky. "Let's say it together and see if we think the same, okay?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Okay, okay." Chi-Chi stretched out her little finger that was as white as jade and said, "Let me count 1, 2, 3. The house where Kimmy's brother lives." The first episode of the first season, Uncle Xiao. Although the father and daughter expressed different things, their thoughts were surprisingly the same. Seeing this, the audience couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "She's really his biological daughter." This wasn't sarcasm. When they came to their house, they found that it was a surprise. Poplar Fruit was surprised and said, "Kiki, look, our room is good." Really, the bright and clean big cave was 60 or 70 square meters. The long wall was hung with picture frames and many window flowers that Kiki had just taken. If there was a shortcoming, it was that this big cave had the kitchen, the study, and the bedroom. Next to the big bed was a stove with a big pot. But it didn't matter because the whole room was well ventilated and the ceramic stove was spotless. "The house is beautiful," Kiki also praised. In fact, Kiki was also a girl. Of course, she liked a clean and comfortable environment. Although she wanted to experience a bad house, if there was a beautiful house to live in, she would be full of joy. "Well, let's change the dress, okay?" Poplar Fruit entered the house, and, after looking around with Kiki, he found a piece of clothing from the box to cover the camera in the room. "Well, the dress is too big, and it will get dirty." Kiki nodded and asked her father to help her take off the fluffy princess dress. Of course, she was still wearing a cute sleeveless vest and small shorts. But the shorts were too short. Poplar Fruit changed his daughter into a comfortable short-sleeved t-shirt and short pants, and then uncovered the clothes that covered the camera. "I'll fold the dress." Kiki immediately squatted down on the bed and helped her father. She was not skilled, and in the end, Poplar Fruit had to do it. However, this kind of thought was precious. "Papa, I want to go to Brother Concon's house to see the lamb." Kiki had just changed her clothes and wanted to come down. Poplar Fruit was arranging the luggage, and when he turned around, he saw that the little girl was already putting on her shoes. No, you have to sleep at noon." Poplar Fruit hurriedly stopped her. "Why?" Kiki was carried back by her father, sat on the bed, and asked with her feet shaking. "Because if you don't sleep at noon, you won't have the energy to play games in the afternoon." Poplar Fruit walked to the bed and laughed. But I'm still a little full, and I can't sleep." Kiki hugged her father's neck and said coquettishly, Chapter 1163. If you can't sleep, let's play in this room. It's noon outside, the sun is shining. Aren't you afraid of being burned black? Poplar Fruit smiled and said to his daughter, "You won't be pretty if you're black." "Okay, then I'll play in the room." Kiki thought for a while and nodded. She was also afraid of the sun outside. It was fine in the morning, but at noon, the sun was scorching and the little girl's bangs were wet with sweat. So it was more comfortable to be in the cool cave. When Poplar Fruit went outside to get water to wipe her face and hands, Kiki was playing with the camera on the wall on the big bed. "I remember you." Kiki curiously looked at the strange machine. "You can move, right? Brother Yangiang wants to play with you." Chi-Chi began to recount the scenes of the children playing with the camera in the first 2 seasons, and she actually managed to recount every single one of them without missing a single one. However, the camera looked a little clumsy. No matter how Kiki turned in front of the camera, it didn't move. Instead, it was a feast for the eyes of the audience to be able to see the most beautiful girl in the 3 seasons of Where We Going, Daddy? So close. Poplar Fruit's family has good genes. The father is tall and handsome, and the daughter is slender and beautiful. I used to think that the little girl was pretty, but now that I look at her closely, this child's skin is so good. I heard that Poplar Fruit and Kiki don't put on makeup when filming. The beauty of nature is the true beauty. However, Kiki was a little unhappy at the moment because she found that the camera didn't move. "Don't you want to play with me?" Kiki looked at the camera doubtfully and guessed, "Are you sealed by the bad guys? I know magic. I'll save you, okay?" The little girl's mouth was chanting a spell that no one could understand, and then she waved her hands and feet. In fact, she didn't look like a magical girl, but more like a crazy little witch. However, there was an advantage to having a good appearance. No matter what kind of nonsense she did, it was cute in the eyes of the audience. What's more, the production team even added a special effect for her. It moved. The camera really moved. It didn't matter whether the staff behind the scenes were doing this on purpose, or if he was distracted and didn't pay attention, or if he had just returned from dinner. The important thing was that the camera really moved. Thinking that her magic had worked, Kiki was pleasantly surprised and jumped up and down excitedly on the big bed. "Be careful, don't fall." Poplar Fruit opened the door, curtain, and walked in with a bucket of water. Daddy." Kiki immediately stood on the big bed and hooked her 2 thin arms around her father's neck. She excitedly told her father about her contribution. "It's really my magic," Kiki repeatedly emphasized. "So powerful?" the atheist Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. It's true. Seeing that her father didn't believe her, Kiki turned around and faced the camera. She bent down and cutely said, "Camera, can you tell my daddy, is my magic really powerful?" The camera rotated up and down. Kiki beamed with joy, turned back, and somewhat proudly said to her father, "Daddy, look," and nodded. "Well, you're really powerful. This is something that I didn't expect." Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "Come on, Daddy will wipe your face. It's clean, the camera likes to play with you." The water was well water, cool, and comfortable. When Poplar Fruit wiped the little girl's face and neck, she kept twisting and shrinking her neck, saying that it was cold, and giggling nonstop. I'll help Daddy, too. Kiki cleverly took the towel from her father's hand and wiped Poplar Fruit's face. Although Poplar Fruit had just wiped the little girl's hands with the towel, Poplar Fruit was still happily propped up on the bed and bent down to accept his daughter's service. Her small hand grabbed the towel and rubbed her father's face. Her technique was not good, but Poplar Fruit only felt that after wiping, his face was refreshed and his mood was extraordinarily bright. Thank you, Kiki. Poplar Fruit affectionately gave his daughter a hug and then happily carried the bucket outside to pour the water. Kiki, who had become more clean and refreshed, ran to play with the camera again. She felt that the camera just nodded and answered the question was awesome. So she continued to ask, "Do you also think that I'm beautiful?" The camera was very supportive and nodded up and down. However, it was indeed beautiful. Kiki's beautiful black hair had just absorbed some water and became a little curly. Especially the bangs and the naughty hair around her ears. It looked unique. This answer made Kiki feel very satisfied. She smiled sweetly, like a blooming flower, as if it made the originally bright cave become bright and beautiful. Let's be good friends, okay? Kiki sent out an invitation. The camera hurriedly nodded, and Kiki happily gave the camera a big hug. Then she began to introduce herself. My full name is Yang Luachi, but my nickname is Kiki. I like it when Papa calls me that. If you like, you can also call me Kiki. I like to watch Pleasant Goat and Barbie dolls. By the way, the village chief took my Barbie doll. When he returns it to me, I'll let you play with it, okay? The camera nodded cooperatively, as if the two were really chatting. I also like to dance. How about I dance for you? Kiki really regarded the camera, who had been communicating with her in a friendly manner, as a good friend. Just after twisting twice, Poplar Fruit came in. Hearing her father's laughter, the little girl immediately shyly threw herself into her father's arms. What are you playing? Poplar Fruit patted his daughter's back and asked with a smile. Although Poplar Fruit's appearance and actual age were very young, his temperament was very mature, and his eyes were full of love when he looked at his daughter. I'm playing with the camera. He has become my good friend. Kiki giggled. Is that so? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Then shouldn't you introduce your good friend to Dad? Okay. Kiki really introduced Poplar Fruit and the camera friend to each other. The camera also nodded and greeted Poplar Fruit. After playing for a while, Kiki also went to bed. Although Poplar Fruit was not sleepy, he had nothing to do. He shook the quilt and was ready to accompany his daughter to rest. Ring, 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 ring. The familiar sound of the bell came to his ears. Poplar Fruit turned his head and saw that Kiki had already run over. Poplar Fruit stretched his head and kissed Kiki's smooth, jade-like little face. She was satisfied and was ready to put the bell back into the bag. However, when she saw the lone camera watching her from the side, Chi-Chi ran over with a smile. She put her face in front of the camera lens, as if she had been kissed. She giggled and ran away. Okay, time to take a nap. Poplar Fruit smiled and carried his restless daughter back. Papa. Kiki lay in her father's arms and whispered, Papa, where are we going to have fun? Kiki is very happy. As long as you're happy. Poplar Fruit gently brushed the bangs on his daughter's forehead as she gradually fell asleep and looked at her with a smile. Chapter 1164. Don't come down yet. Wait for Daddy to help you put on your shoes. Poplar Fruit called out to Kiki, who had wanted to crawl down the bed after waking up in the afternoon. The cave was not like their home. The floor here did not have clean and smooth tiles. Stepping on a yellow soil would dirty their feet. Do you want to wear a dress? Kiki was still thinking about her beautiful princess dress. No, we still have to play games in the afternoon. You won't be able to run in a dress. Poplar Fruit laughed. All right, then let's go out quickly. After Kiki got down, She stepped on her comfortable sports shoes and pulled Poplar Fruit outside. Aren't you going to eat something in the afternoon? Do you want to drink Cuckoo Star milk? Poplar Fruit was still thinking about the program team's instructions. Although it was a program, he still had to remember the names of the advertisers when he had the chance. All right. Kiki took a bottle of milk from her father's hands and happily drank it. It's really delicious. At this moment, there was some noise at the door. Poplar Fruit was stunned and thought to himself, "Don't tell me it's too late." He felt sorry for his daughter and let her sleep for more than 10 minutes. If not, Kiki would not be so energetic. At the door, Luyi opened the curtain and walked in. Behind him was a little kid with some foreign blood. He was also the most handsome and interesting Nuo-e in this season. Brother Nuo-e. Kiki happily ran over and held on Nuo-e, who was shorter than her. She brought him to the side of the bed and taught him how to greet her good friend, Mr. Camera. Poplar Fruit, you guys live here? Luyi said enviously. I think it's all right. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and laughed. The windows are clean and bright. It's quite comfortable living here. Luyi sighed and bitterly laughed. It's not just all right. Compared to where I live, it's practically heaven. Brother Yi, it can't be. I thought my place was the worst. Poplar Fruit asked Luyi about his family's environment in surprise. He sighed and said, the production team is really heartless. Did he really design such a house? Back then, only the Poplar Fruit and Luyi's families were left with two choices. One was heaven, the other was hell. In the end, Luyi was stumbled by fate. Not only that, I'm telling you, the chimney is also blocked. Nuyi was playing with fire in the stove at noon, and the smoke couldn't get out at all. It smoked the whole house, and he couldn't go back for a long time. Luyi poured out his grievances to Poplar Fruit. Brother Yi, why don't we go back and ask the village chief for an exchange? Kiki has always wanted to try the toughest environment, Poplar Fruit suggested with a smile. No, your family is a daughter. Don't suffer like this. Luyi waved his hand. Besides, ring, 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 ring. Before he could finish his sentence, the light sound of a bell came from where the two children were. Poplar Fruit turned his head in surprise and saw that the bell that Kiki had casually placed on the table before they went to bed in the afternoon had appeared in the hands of the curious Nuyi. Before he could react, Kiki put down the milk that she was drinking and leaned over to kiss Nuyi on the face. Of course, Nuyi did not feel anything. He continued to rock, and Kiki continued to kiss him. This made Poplar Fruit's heart jump. He almost kicked the kid out. What virtue did he have? This kid. Luckily, Kiki did not really kiss him. She was different from her biological father. She only made a kissing motion and then giggled nonstop, as if it was something fun. It was also because of this that Yongwood didn't really explode. Cough, cough. Poplar Fruit took the bell from Nuyi's hands and pretended to be calm with a smile. Kiki, you should explain to Brother Nuyi what this bell means. What I mean is, as long as you keep ringing the bell, I'll come and kiss you. Chi-Chi giggled and explained innocently. Her voice was still as clear as ever. Yes, this is our family's kiss bell, Poplar Fruit said. He thought to himself, when I get back, I have to tell Kiki that this bell is not something that anyone can use. If someone else shakes it, it won't work. Only our family members have the magic to use this bell. Poplar Fruit quietly placed the bell on the edge of the table where Nuyi could not reach. He then smiled and said, Okay, it's not early anymore. Let's go to the gathering place together. Okay, Brother Nuyi, let's go together. Kiki and Nuyi naturally held hands and walked in front. Poplar Fruit and Luyi followed behind. Luyi still had not recovered from his depressed mood of choosing the wrong house. Along the way, he continued to talk about this matter. When he found Hu Jun and the others, he became even more depressed. The gathering place was still at the village entrance. There was an especially wide piece of yellow land. But now, there were two tall corn towers on one side and a white circle on the other. Kiki and Nuyi ran down the slope. Along the way, their laughter did not stop. Very quickly, they attracted the attention of the children who had already arrived at the gathering place. Brother Nuyi. Jun happily waved his hands and ran over. He gave Nuyi a tight hug. Xian, who was still peeling corn cobs just now, saw Chi-Chi running over from behind. The princess had taken off her dress, but she looked even more valiant and formidable. Her beauty was unparalleled. Xian was immediately dumbfounded. He didn't even notice when the corn cobs slipped off the drum. Brother Xian. Kiki also followed June and ran over to hug Xian. Then she giggled and ran to the side. Looking at Xian, he was so happy that he was about to faint. Zhou Shimin did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said to Poplar Fruit. When he woke up, he kept saying that he wanted to play with his sister. Poplar Fruit smiled, but did not say anything. I also want a hug, Nui shouted. No, you have to catch up to me. The advantage of Chi-Chi's well-proportioned and slender legs was fully displayed. She ran agilely on the yellow sand, as if she was a butterfly that could sing. Wasn't that right? Kiki's laughter was as pleasant as a silver bell. It attracted the attention of all the children. I'll catch up to you. Nui was the first to run. I'm also very fast. Xian's chubby body shook as he ran nimbly. Wait for me. I'm coming too. Dejun also joined in the fun. President Kong stood at the side, holding a corn loftily. He looked at Kiki and the rest playing. He was a little envious, but he still curled his lips coolly. I, young Master Kong, would never play such childish games. Humph. Hey, don't run so fast. What if you fall? Lin Yongjin stood up and poured cold water on them. Poplar Fruit quickly pulled him back and smiled. Teacher Lin, it's okay. You won't fall. Just let the children play. Indeed, they did not fall. The children's body balance was not bad. Although running around on the yellow sand would make their shoes a little dusty, this happiness was hard to come by. 7 days of National Day fun. Everyone is happy. Continue to ask for votes. Chapter 1165. It was not easy to gather the group of wild horses back together. The village head began to announce the first activity of the afternoon. The father's team and the villagers' team would compete in picking corn. Each team would send one person to take turns to go on stage. Whoever finished picking 5 corn kernels first would win. The father's team sent out Jun and his son. Of course, the child stood at the side and watched. The main force was still Jun. He was already sitting on a tower made of corn. In front of him was a large frame with 5 corn kernels. The corn kernels on the Lus Plateau did not have much water content. It was not as easy to extract juice as the corn that Poplar Fruit bought at home. However, it was still corn. It was not easy to peel it. If you lose, there will be a punishment. The village chief reminded. Senior brother, the punishment is that the big iron bucket on top of your head will fall down. Lu Yi, who thought that he had escaped a calamity, said to Jun with schadenfreude. Poplar Fruit smiled and saw that Jun's face was a little dark. He smiled bitterly but could not smile. However, at this time, he felt a force coming from his hand. It was Kiki who was holding his hand tightly. What's wrong? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Can Uncle Hu win? Kiki pulled her father's hand in front of her and asked with a worried face. It would not be easy to win. Although Jun was Hero Xiaofeng who knew the 18 dragon subduing palms, his skill in peeling corn was probably not as good as the skilled villagers. Oh right, in the demigods and semi-devils, the nameless sweeping monk had subdued Xiaofeng's father. It doesn't matter if I win or lose. However, you can cheer for Uncle Hu. Poplar Fruit smiled and took back his hand. He pushed Kiki out and let her be with the children who were already mixed together. Kiki looked at her father's encouraging eyes and finally shouted. The 2 cheerleaders who were shouting weakly were also motivated by Kiki's clear voice. Uncle Hu, you can do it. Uncle Hu, you can do it. Although Jun did try his best to peel the corn under the cheers of the children, he still lost the first round of the competition by a large margin. With a clang, the big iron bucket above opened, and a pile of corn kernels poured down. So, this was the punishment. In the second round, Lu Yi also lost. His performance against an Annie was actually not bad, but he was after all an actor with delicate skin and tender flesh, so he was still lacking by a little. Lu Yi fought until his fingers were bleeding. At this moment, The cold and aloof Director Kong appeared in front of everyone unexpectedly. He took out a medical kit from somewhere and gave the injured Lu Yi and the villagers a tourniquet. Look at Brother Kong Kong. He's doing so well. Poplar Fruit pointed at Kong Kong and smiled at Kiki. So, Kiki, don't think that Brother Kong Kong is always fierce. He's just a man of few words, but he's also a very nice person. Papa, I don't want you to get hurt. Kiki did not hear what her father said clearly. Instead, she held onto her father's hand with a worried expression and pouted. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "It's okay. Papa won't get hurt. Papa is very strong." Just now, when he held the corn in Kiki's hand and felt the way to peel the corn, he realized that there was a lot of knowledge in it. It was not something that could be won just by using strength. It also required some small skills. At the beginning, he tried to use strength to pinch the corn, but it only made a big handprint on the corn cob. It only squashed the corn, but not a single corn was peeled. Blushing, he secretly threw the injured corn in his hand to the side. Because of Kiki's delay, Poplar Fruit, who was originally eager to try, did not participate in the third round of the competition. Because his father's team lost the first 2 rounds, this time they sent the Olympic champion, China's boxing champion, Zhou Shimin, to compete. Papa, you have to win. You can't lose. As soon as little chubby Xian came up, he gave his father a lot of pressure in a childish voice. Zhou Shimin could only look at his son and nod, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Kiki was not so nervous when her father was not competing. Poplar Fruit and Zhou Shimin got along very well today. He followed Kiki, who was looking around curiously, and he quickly picked a few corn that looked more plump for Zhou Shimin with his 2 hands. "Brother Zhou, these corn are good to rub." Poplar Fruit laughed and told him a few skills that he observed from the powerful villagers. "You can twist it like this, but you have to rub it and use your knuckles." "Yes, Papa, you have to rub it. You have to be fast, you have to win." Xian's gasping voice continued to cheer for his father in another way. "It's okay, your father will win." Poplar Fruit comforted Xian. "Papa, come on. Uncles, come on." When the competition started, the children's cries immediately filled the people's eardrums. Although the competition was in full swing, the children's cries were louder. However, Xian, who was standing in the same row as Kiki, shouted and his voice became weak. His eyes did not know when, but they had moved away from his father. Little chubby Xian stared straight at Kiki's sister. His heart must have been rippling at that moment. "Oh my God, what a beautiful sister. You're like a pink and white flower in the hustle and bustle, swaying on the yellow plateau, embellishing this part of the world. Oh, it's really fascinating." Of course, this was just the line that the netizens added after they burst out laughing. "Xian, look at your father." Poplar Fruit did not know whether to laugh or cry as he gently patted Xian's shoulder. Only then did Xian come back to his senses and continue to cheer for his father loudly. Although Zhou Shimin did according to Poplar Fruit's method and performed better than the previous 2 fathers, his opponent in this round was not weak. The distance between them was about to widen. Lin Yongjian had appeared in front of Zhou Shimin at some point and brazenly helped him peel corn. Everyone laughed, but Poplar Fruit did not laugh because he found that this was not enough. So, he took a big stride and jumped behind the other villager to disturb him. Kiki laughed and waved her small hands, wanting to come over and help. The village chief finally struggled out of his state of laughing and stopped her. "Don't break the rules. Don't break the rules." Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhou Shimin turned the situation around and was the first to finish peeling the corn on the cob. Amidst the cheers of the father's team, he pulled down the rope. However, Poplar Fruit, who had just helped Zhou Shimin to disturb the other party, suffered. Because he was tall and big, he was hit by most of the corn that fell from the sky. Everyone laughed out loud. "Oh, Poplar Fruit, are you okay?" Zhou Shimin quickly climbed down and helped Poplar Fruit pat the corn on his body. He could not reach his head. I'm fine." Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head. In fact, he was really fine. It was right to be punished for cheating. On the other hand, Kiki was a little sad. She pushed away Xian, who was happily hugging her, and ran to her father's side. She almost dropped a gold bean. Chapter 1166. What's wrong? Why aren't you happy? Didn't we win? Poplar Fruit lowered his head and gently patted Kiki's little head. She suddenly came up and hugged her leg. She was in low spirits, which made everyone a little confused. Little Chuan huffed and said with a little childish voice, "That's right, sister, my daddy won. I don't want daddy to win." Kiki pouted and unhappily said, "Why don't you want daddy to win?" Poplar Fruit was a little surprised and asked with a smile, Because I don't want daddy to get hurt." Kiki rubbed her eyes and unhappily said, Previously, when she saw Hu Jun, Lu Yi, and other uncles injured their hands from playing games, she was a little worried. Just now, her daddy was drenched in corn. Although this small punishment didn't cause any harm, the momentum was a little scary, making Kiki's worried mood suddenly break through the threshold. Seeing the heartwarming little princess being so concerned about her daddy, the audience sitting in front of the TV or computer felt that their hearts were about to be warmed by Kiki. Even a few female audience members with shallow tear ducts were moved to tears. Nothing. What's wrong with daddy? Poplar Fruit found it funny and moved as he pressed his big hand on his daughter's back and gently patted her and comforted her. Kiki's emotional outburst surprised the program crew, but they still paused the game to comfort the little girl first. A few children gathered around, but they were all somewhat helpless. Director Kong also looked at his little sister with some concern, but when he realized that the camera was pointed at him, he raised his nostrils and pretended to be disdainful as he turned around and left. Another child also came over. Louie squatted down, pulled Kiki's hand, and said to Kiki, "Kiki, come listen to me." Kiki pouted and unwillingly turned around, but her other hand was still hugging her daddy's thigh. "Your daddy is very powerful." Louie tried to persuade her. "Your father defeated so many bad guys last year and didn't get hurt. How can a few corns hurt your father? Besides, look at the wound on Uncle's hand. It's just a small wound. It'll heal in a short while." Louie smiled. "There's no need to worry at all." "Who said that?" Kiki felt very uncomfortable for being injured. She fell and scraped her knee, and the pain made her want to cry. If Dad was injured, it would definitely be very painful. Her father was hurt, but Kiki's heart was in pain. "Your Uncle Lu Yi is right. Kiki, you must believe in Daddy." Poplar Fruit patted Kiki's shoulder with a smile and said, "Daddy is going to play. Kiki, come and cheer for Daddy, okay?" "All right." Kiki followed her father and said, "Papa, it doesn't matter if you lose. I just want you not to get hurt." "Okay, I'll try my best to compete without getting hurt," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Did you see that? Sister cares so much about Daddy." You only think about Daddy winning. Zhou Shimon sighed and rubbed his son's hair. His son was good at everything, but his desire to win was too strong. Sitting on the stage, Poplar Fruit greeted the villager. "Fellow villager, this is a real competition. Don't go easy on me." Poplar Fruit smiled and said provocatively, "This was purely to increase the interest of the program." The villager uncle laughed. "Really, don't look down on me. I'm very powerful." Poplar Fruit laughed. "I'm even more powerful." The villager uncle laughed without backing down. "Fellow villager, do you know who he is?" The village chief appeared at the right time and interviewed him. "I know that after the spring festival, that kid on TV, he touched China," the villager uncle said. "But fellow villager, you definitely don't know. I'm also from the village. Peeling corn is my specialty. I've been peeling corn since I was young." Poplar Fruit demonstrated by playing with two corns like dumbbells. Everyone around laughed. Poplar Fruit's mouth really had no limit. It was almost as exaggerated as the variety shows in South Korea. This made producer Xie and village chief Li Rue look at Poplar Fruit in a new light. They were initially worried that Poplar Fruit would not be able to swallow his pride and participate in the program. With the village chief's call, The competition officially began. Kiki, who was worried just a moment ago, was now nervous and excited. She was also afraid that her father would get hurt. Her emotions fluctuated and became another eye-catching scene in this heated competition. However, Poplar Fruit's performance was equally eye-catching. He was peeling corn really fast. He took 2 cobs of corn and rubbed them together, creating a gap. Then, Poplar Fruit threw down 1 corn cob and used both hands to rub the remaining corn cob, as if he was wringing a towel. The corn cob, which was as hard as a rock in other people's hands, actually fell to the ground. No one could see the angle and technique of Poplar Fruit, but that did not stop them from admiring the scene of Poplar Fruit peeling corn. The camera even took a close-up shot of Poplar Fruit's hand. After 1 round, only the stem of the corn cob was left of the full corn cob. Poplar Fruit had already started the battle of the second corn cob. The father's team was excited. Unlike the lively cheers of the children, they really saw hope for victory. When he rubbed the 4th corn cob, Poplar Fruit glanced at the villager uncle on his right and realized that he was leading by a lot. So much so that he even had the leisure to turn his head and smile at Kiki. "Come, Kiki, kiss Daddy. Daddy will have more strength this way." Kiki immediately knelt on the corn tower and hugged her father's neck. Her moist little mouth kissed her father's face hard. "Daddy, you can do it." His daughter's soft voice was very pleasant to hear. It gave Poplar Fruit even greater motivation. "Ah," he shouted excitedly. Although he did not go all out, Poplar Fruit still quickly finished the rest of the corn cob. Crash! The corn cobs poured down like a waterfall, but this time they fell on the villager uncle's head. The father's team cheered. Poplar Fruit carried his daughter down. Lu Yi, Zhou Shimin, and the others ran over to high-five Poplar Fruit to celebrate. One had to know that after losing 2 matches in a row, the father's team was actually able to win 2 matches in a row. This was not an easy record. The low morale of the father's team suddenly rose again. "Sister, your father is so strong," Xian Xian said to Kiki in a childish voice. Nua Yi and Jun also surrounded Poplar Fruit and looked at Poplar Fruit with admiration. Poplar Fruit quickly explained his winning technique to the last member of the father's team, Lin Yongjian. With hope of winning, everyone naturally hoped to win. They hoped to bring joy to the children. "Teacher Lin, you hold the corn cob like this. Use the 2 joints of your index finger and the second joint of your middle finger to exert strength." Poplar Fruit was explaining when the corner of his shirt was pulled. Poplar Fruit looked down and saw that it was Kiki. She pulled on the corner of her shirt and asked Poplar Fruit to squat down. Chapter 1167. What's wrong with the little girl? Yanghua had won the competition, but she didn't seem very happy. Now, she had a worried expression like Dayu. Poplar Fruit squatted down, and Kiki held her father's hand, opened each big finger, and carefully looked at it. "It's okay," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Dad is not hurt. There's one more," Kiki said with a pout. She still wanted to confirm it with her own eyes. "I'm really not hurt, look." Poplar Fruit had to take out both hands. "It's red here." Kiki carefully held her father's right hand and pointed to the finger joint that was slightly red because of rubbing the corn. The little girl's expression at the moment was like holding a rare treasure. Moreover, because of the red mark on her father's hand, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Her pitiful and cute appearance made the audience in front of the TV couldn't help but let out a "oh" sound of love. Everyone wanted to hold the little girl in their arms and love her. They couldn't bear to see this beauty who looked like she walked out of a painting cry. "It's okay, it's just a little red. It's not broken, right?" Poplar Fruit held his daughter in his arms, let her sit on his lap, and said with a smile, "Does it hurt?" Kiki asked with heartache. "It doesn't hurt. Why don't you help Dad blow it? It'll be fine after you blow it," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "I'll help Dad blow it." Kiki really held her father's hand and gently blew a breath of fairy air. "Does Dad still hurt?" "It doesn't hurt anymore. Thank you, Kiki." Poplar Fruit kissed his daughter's face, and his face was full of smiles. Kiki also finally smiled bashfully. She found that everyone was looking at her, and she was a little shy. Kiki's mood improved, and under the lead of Brother Xian and Brother Nui, she began to become lively again. Daddy Dajuan, you can do it. Back to the performance of Lin Yongjian and his son. Under the guidance of Poplar Fruit, Lin Yongjian, who had learned some skills to peel corn, showed a certain degree of competitiveness. Just now it was 2 against 2. Who would win and who would lose would depend on whether teacher Lin Yongjian would perform well or not. I think it's a little risky, Lu Yi said with a cheeky grin as he jinxed it. Thus, Lin Yongjian really lost the last round. After all, teacher Lin's physical fitness was the worst among the 5 fathers. In the end, he could only hug his son and soak him in the corn rain. It's nothing. Teacher Lin laughed heartily as he shook off the corn grains on his head. Before he could finish his sentence, the mischievous Dejun picked up another bag of corn kernels and poured on his head, giving him another stab. He was really his own son. Teacher Lin was having a good time. He simply let his son hold the big basket and pour it, causing everyone to laugh. The second game was to put on pants without using one's hands. It was a common game in Korean variety shows, but the fathers came up with a new trick, especially Hu Jun and Lu Yi. The 2 of them used their legs to help each other. Their overflowing camaraderie made the audience convulse with laughter. From this, one could see the deep malice of the program team. Almost all the audience understood the origin of this when the program was broadcast. No matter what, because of the Fathers' cooperation, the Fathers team won the second round of the game, regaining some face for the fathers. The third game was to snatch stools. Finally, the fathers and the children could participate in the game together. They finally understood the purpose of the big circle in the middle of the empty space. It turned out we walk around the big circle. When the music stops, we have to snatch the stools. If we can't, we lose. Kiki might not understand other games, but when it came to this most commonly played game in kindergarten, Kiki immediately turned into an expert. She explained the rules of the game to the fathers with joy. It's not music anymore. It's drums. The uncle over there knows how to play the drums. Poplar Fruit corrected her. Daddy, I'm very good at snatching stools. I used to win all the time. Perhaps it was because she could play games with her father, or for some other reason, Kiki was very excited and said a lot of things. Daddy, you have to win. Little chubby Xian pressured his father again. Zhou Shimin could only smile bitterly and say nothing. The game started, and the drums sounded. Kiki pulled her father and started to walk in circles, just like the other children and fathers. The nervous little girl giggled nonstop. It was as if the air was filled with her bell-like laughter. Dong, dong, dong. The drums were not hurried. They were slow and rhythmic. Everyone seemed to be used to this rhythm. However, suddenly, the drum stopped. Everyone was stunned. They did not hear the next drum beat that was supposed to appear. Daddy, hurry up. Poplar Fruit's attention was on his daughter. He was afraid that she would run too fast and fall. It was Kiki who reacted first. She pulled her father's hand and went to snatch the chairs. Poplar Fruit and Kiki's reactions were the fastest, so they easily snatched the 2 stools. Yay! Poplar Fruit and his daughter laughed and high-fived in celebration. Kiki was also very happy. However, some people were happy while others were sad. Because Xian and Lu Yi were the first to be eliminated, Nua Yi was sad before Xian was sad. He was sad because he could not play games with his father. He even cried because his father could not play games with him. He did not want to continue playing games. This was the first time that they saw Nua Yi crying, whether it was Poplar Fruit or the audience. In everyone's impression, Nua Yi was a child with a slightly melancholy expression, but he was also ridiculously happy. Even after living in such a dilapidated cave, he still had a lot of fun on his own. Even though Lu Yi carried Nua Yi, his mood did not improve. It's okay, let's continue playing. The fathers here all need your help. Poplar Fruit walked over and clapped. He wanted to hug him and comfort him, but Nua Yi turned his head away, unwilling to do so. Kiki also came over. She looked up and circled Uncle Lu Yi, then said, "Brother Yi, you can take your father's place and participate. You can do it. Why don't you let my daddy hold your hand?" However, Kiki still did not understand Nu Yi's inner world. Nu, he was still crying and pursing his lips. Luckily, the program team was not unprepared. They had already guessed that the children would be sad and cry, so the village chief secretly asked the staff for a trump card. "Children, take a look." The village chief waved 2 huge rainbow lollipops and shouted, "Lollipops! Lollipops!" Before he could introduce, or perhaps no children were listening to the village chief's introduction, all the children's attention was attracted by the huge lollipops. Even Nu Yi, who was hugging his father without letting go, was now staring intently at the 2 lollipops. That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.